Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. We got a very special night tonight as the legendary Grant Cameron is here, my hero, my mentor, and my opposition in the old Smythe division. And Nicole Sakach is here, one of my favorite people in ufology. I love these two people. They're not only mentors of mine, heroes of mine, but I'm so privileged to be able to call them friends as well. We're going to talk about their brand new book tonight, and we're going to get into that momentarily. Before we bring them on, let's say hello to everyone in our chat room tonight. Psychophia, how are you? Welcome to the gold medal position. We appreciate you coming on in. Jenny Metz takes home the silver. You're looking lovely, Jenny. John Poe in the bronze medal position. Jay Foxhunter, Andrew, how you doing? James Horn, nice to see you. There's Chad Smith, everybody. The Chad Smith. SJ, race fan, the gorgeous Cosmic Floor, nice to have you here. Stewpot, Black Dragon, Semper Fi to you, my friend. Thank you for joining us. The lovely Jamie Lynn Ricketts, please update Merle and Dave Scott Fish. How are our fish doing? Give us an update. Gorgeous Ozzy Ange, good to see you. Thank you for coming on in. The lovely Steph Dickey out of Florida. There she is. Give us a wave, Steph. Grand Paul Holland, Nicola, good to see you guys. Thank you for joining us as we continue scrolling on down to do our roll call here on the mighty SOR. Mennonite Abe is here, everyone. Yes, he loves his name, Mennonite Abe, even though he's not Mennonite. We'll still call him that, though. Why? Because we can. Worsley's here. He'll be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio. Bassmaster is here as well. He'll be signing autographs. Line up to the right. He does not like eye contact, people. No eye contact if you want an autograph. That is the truth. Simon Wales in Australia, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate that. Hi, Joe Smith and Smoking Joe, Jeff Steve Garvey. Simon Wales, thank you so much for kicking off the Super Chat tonight. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis, so thank you so much. Solar Warden, really appreciate seeing you again as we continue scrolling on down. There's Double Tim, gorgeous Patty B, and JR, good to see you. Todd Purdon, Open-Minded Clarity. Apollo 11, nice to have you here. Big Willie Townsend, he'll be taking over Saturday evenings on the UFO Garage channel. I'm excited to see this. He's got a fantastic hair and beard combination. It'll fit right in over there. It'll be awesome. Congratulations, Will. We really appreciate that, man. Hey, John Swan, nice to see you, my friend. And there's 509er, nice to have you here. Valro, good to see you. As we continue on down, Stephen Edmond, Jurassic Joey, Spooky Morales, Howard, nice to have you guys here. And we continue on with our roll call as there's Dirty Fylth, everyone. He hasn't showered in 4 weeks. Dirty frickin' Fylth. There he is. Drew Morris, nice to have you here. Thank you for joining us. Millennium, good to see you again, bud. Nice to have you here. And here we go. Oh, there she is, the pride of Manitoba. Yeah. It's the Brandon Wheat Queen herself, Manitoba Becky. There she is. Give us a wave and a curtsy if you don't mind. Looney, good to see you. Bim Jim from BC. How you doing, buddy? How's your Sasquatch in that area? Please let us know. Uncle Dale and his Power Stash are here, everyone. Remember, if you see Uncle Dale in Austin, Texas, rub his Power Stash for 3 weeks of good luck. 3 weeks. Grandmaster, Vinman, good to have you guys here. Appreciate you. $5,900. Good to see you. Hi, Wes. The gorgeous Michelle C. from Australia. Mama Susan. Stunning Helena. Good to have you all here. Gordium. Good to have you back, man. And Marty Burback. How are you, my friend? Silent Listen. The gorgeous Tessa. Ozzy. Oi, oi to you. Bob, how you doing? Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Fat Bass. Nice to have you here. BG's. Good to see you. And we're going to continue on here. Peppa H. Nice to have you back. And there's the gorgeous Shelly Michelle Morrison. Nice to see you again. And Mr. Cumberbottom, how are you? Welcome to our channel. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And Project Blue Book, good to see you. The stunning flower girl from Southwest Virginia. I've actually been there, I think. I don't know. Science Bob is here, everyone. Science Bob. Sonny, how are you, bud? You look great on UFO Garage. Mennonite Abe, thank you for that awesome super chat. All right, we're going to have to cut it off right there. Mickle and a Pickle. And Science Bob, thank you so much for your super chat. Really appreciate it. Let's rock and roll. Get your horns up. Let's do this right now. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by CHIVE Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting CHIVE Charities today. You can find them on our website. I am so excited to have these two here, two of my favorite people in ufology. The legendary Grant Cameron, a mentor of mine, and his assistant researcher and an incredible researcher herself, Nicole Sakach. Well, they have a brand new book out called Triangles, Aliens, and Messages. Can be found on Amazon. Together, this incredible research pair take a deep look into the sightings and experiences people have had with these alleged alien craft. At the forefront of ufology, both Grant and Nicole show their research diligence in talking with real people who've experienced these extraordinary encounters. And we're going to go to them right now. Grant Cameron, Nicole Sakach, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. This is like family time tonight. Oh, you're on mute, Nicole. There you are.
He said we're the three amigos.
Exactly. It is.
As I pointed out, you two are the ones with the long hair. I'm the one with no hair.
Well, Grant, you're sporting a little bit of an injury there, and I know people are going to ask, was it a hockey fight at the Coliseum there? Were you walking down downtown Winnipeg, and all of a sudden you had to go Macho Man Randy Savage on a thief stealing an old lady's purse? What happened?
Well, we had a little bit of an eye problem. We had a cataract, which a lot of people do get. I was basically blind in the left eye. I was actually down near Nicole there in Illinois, and I was telling people we're doing the C5. This is a total waste of time because I can't at night. My left eye, I was completely almost blind at night. So they did. It was the most efficient operation I've ever seen in my life. I just could not believe how efficient the 15 people I dealt with. It was just like a machine or like a Super Bowl team. It was unbelievable. So it's all. I've got another appointment in a couple of hours. Check it, but everybody goes through it, and they've got this laser surgery that Nicole is sort of related to, someone that helped invent it. But the technology is absolutely incredible these days. Absolutely incredible.
It is. I'm glad you're okay, boss.
It took a long time because of COVID. I actually had this diagnosed years ago already. And then the one woman said to me, they went for all the tests, and then she said, okay, now good luck getting an operating room, because all the operating rooms have been shut down. And so finally they opened up and we got it done, but I've had it for a couple of years.
Well, now maybe you'll see some of those faces in the orbs and portals that people send us.
Yeah, that is a key thing with the faces in the orbs, where everybody always says, oh, can you see the face of my grandmother or the alien or whatever? And it's like, no. In fact, there was a photo taken in Franklin Grove there in Illinois, has an alien. Once you see the video, you'll see there's actually two aliens they picked up. But the one was a little bit hard to see, and the other one I actually saw it. And then I was talking to Marcel Vidovic, and he said, oh, that's too small to analyze. But there's actually one in the bush too. It's kind of weird where these things are popping up in photos all the time now, which never happened in the 70s. There's no way this kind of stuff was happening in the 70s.
Maybe we just got more dust on the earth.
Maybe that could be, yeah. Or the digital cameras. That's what everybody says. It's the digital cameras that started the whole thing.
I don't know. I honestly think maybe because I know a little bit more of this backstory with this group of people. I think it's something special about these people. It's like how they're in the field. I think it's what's presenting for them, and not saying it's unusual, because I think it is happening to other people, but this group, I think, has been maybe working towards a moment like this for a while, I think. So
although they, as I pointed out, they really didn't want the UFO people there, because it was sort of like UFOs. That's not, they're into, you know, the channeling and the psychics and the healers and all that kind of stuff. And it was like, and you do have that thing. I don't know if you've seen that before, but the science fiction people don't get along with the UFO people, and the paranormal people don't get along with the UFO people. It's like everybody's always fighting about something.
Yeah, but isn't that the way it is right now? You know, everybody has something to fight about. I mean, if we're not fighting about Lou Elizondo trying to make a couple of bucks off of his book the deal, or if we're not fighting about Elon Musk putting out a tweet saying UFOs are real, I mean, what do we really have in this field if we're not dropping the gloves against each other?
Yeah, it is. Well, it's always been that way. It's always like we always said, the only currency in ufology was ego. And people have been fighting all the time, and you know, and going at each other, and because there's really no money, so it's basically your ideas. All you have to sort of sell people and to promote is your idea. So people take their ideas very seriously.
Before we go any further, I want to get your opinions on both of you, because I trust your opinions on this whole Angeli situation. This former DOD member of the United States who held a press conference at the Lincoln Memorial talking about she's going to take a group of people to meet aliens in the Mojave Desert in some hidden cave on private property. Grant, have you been looking into this? And if so, what's your thoughts?
I'm always suspicious, because I mean, I've been in this a long time, and if you actually look at the UFO contacts, like your contact, you've had a couple of contacts. How long do you see the alien for? Like a couple of seconds, out of the corner of your eye. And so when you get things like this thing where, you know, it's in the mountain, and then this guy just happened to drill this tunnel in the right direction and found these aliens living under a mountain. As soon as I hear the physical alien thing, because the more I look at it, the more I really doubt this is going to be as physical as people think it is. Or like when you have Richard Doty talk about, you know, you have 13 aliens at Area 51, and they electrocute them to try to get out. My experience with aliens and whatever this phenomenon is, it's very sort of, it pops in, it pops out. It's not as physical as people think. It's almost like this expression that I just heard was the idea that you have the whole quantum thing about the wave particle thing, and in the physical world it's more particle, but in that world it's more wave. That's my idea, that the ideas that I've got, or the people that I've encountered with aliens and my own experiences, is they don't come here and they don't negotiate with people and go for lunch with people. As soon as I hear the physical alien thing, that there's actually physical aliens walking around, I really start to really doubt it. Now, maybe she's going to produce it, but we'll see what happens.
Hope for you, Nicole.
Well, I do kind of follow suit with everything that Grant just said, but I have poked into this a little further, and I guess it was just maybe I think where the route I took with this is kind of from hanging out with the both of you. I mean, together, the three of us speak with so many experiencers, and right off the bat, like, I knew a few people that seemed to be close with her, or were at least at the Washington, D.C. press conference that she held. So I called one of them and just kind of off the cuff had a conversation that my gut was telling me that there's more to this experiencer story. And that I know often when people are speaking about this stuff for the first time, they don't know what specifics or what really to go into detail about. So it's like they just spew out all of this anthology instead of maybe focusing on some finer tuned details. Like, Grant, I really wasn't sure if she was talking about physical beings in this tunnel. Like the way she described going through this tunnel, it almost seemed like maybe something had happened there to all of them. Like they entered into something. And I've also heard whispers, and I know there was things up on Reddit where she has experimented with psilocybin. So I was wondering how much that played into this part of her experiencer journey. So I think there's more to come out, and I'm in a holding pattern.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying is when you start looking at the whole experience, especially when you mention psychedelics, you know, Chase Williams, and you've heard him tell the story
Right.
with the DMT thing where he's on the table, he's being abducted. And he's actually taking DMT for 10 minutes. And this guy's an artificial intelligence expert. This guy's not some guy off the street. And he's basically telling the story about it's like, and they're working on his head and this sort of thing. And you get this thing with 50% of all people that do the DMT thing in the Strassman experiment had these encounters with beings. So are they actual physical beings, or are they in this this sort of world of altered reality or whatever? And that's when you start coming down to what is the actual world? Is the world as physical as people think it is? The person you should probably be asking about this is Bob McGuire. I mean, he's here. I mean, I think he had some comments. I think he had some connection to this story, but we'll see what happens. I mean, if the beings are there and she's going to take George Knapp or who she's taken, we'll see if it shows up. I just have a very great hesitation. As soon as someone says they're talking to aliens and they're going for lunch and the aliens are physical and they're walking around, that's not my experience with whatever this phenomenon is. It's very elusive. It comes for a couple seconds. It comes in your dreams, or like Bashar says, we come to you in your dreams because now you're in our world.
Well, and I think the other thing I speculate about is I know often we talk about Skinwalker Ranch or Mount Shasta or these other hotspot locations. And I'm kind of the proponent of, you know, there's lots of places like Skinwalker Ranch or these power centers for sightings or experiences. And it almost makes me wonder if this place at this mountain is going to turn out to be a scenario like that, where there's a bunch of strange junk going on there. So I don't know.
When's she supposed to be taking people there? Because this happened a long time ago that she did the news conference.
Well, I heard by the end of the year.
End of the year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a long time. I mean, if they're there, I mean, just jump in a car and go there and let's do it like tomorrow. I mean, because the other thing she said is, I'm never going to identify the location of the place. As soon as I heard that, I go, that's not good. That doesn't sound good. Okay, we're never going to.
Private property. It's private property, but she's not the only person who's had an experience or an experience there. The owner of the property has also taken other people there as well. So that's
what takes till the end of the year to
turn it into like a hotspot place where it's like people go and high strangeness happens. So,
but what takes till the end of the year to do this? I mean, why is it taking so long?
I don't know that.
Skinwalker Ranch. That's where I get into this thing that's what Jacques Vallée said. The only thing they didn't have at Skinwalker Ranch was UFOs. They had orbs. They had manifestations in ports and bulls being put in trailers and stuff like that. And that's where I think the important thing is that the DIA went in there, and what they were investigating with OSAP was not UFOs. It was the paranormal thing. It was how do you put bulls inside trailers? How do you engage with this phenomena that can do all these weird things? And that's, to me, is the more I look at the UFO phenomena, the more it seems to be like Skinwalker Ranch, where it's just like you can't even grab it. It just slips through your fingers and it's there and it's gone, and it's doing this theory of wow thing where it appears just long enough for you to see it. Or when people see UFOs, you ask them, well, how long was it there? And they just a couple seconds. What was it doing? Nothing. And you start wondering, like, what's really going on here? I think it's much more complex than the idea that there are these beings that have come, and accidentally found the world, and they crash and they're running across the desert and trying to get away and stuff. That kind of stuff. Just the more I hear it, the more I sort of suspect that that's not going to be true.
The one thing that I do know as an experiencer, and Nicole, you'll probably understand this as well. Grant, you as well, I guess, because you've been doing this long enough, is the fact that a lot of experiencers out there don't hold press conferences to make public spectacles. I believe that Angeli is an experiencer of some sort.
Yeah.
I really do. Her energy gives that off. However, I'm very much more concerned about her handlers and the people who are kind of pressuring her and all around her at that press conference, trying to make this look like a massive deal, like they're strutting out, somebody of major importance in the field of government and ufology and the crossover. And that's my big concern here. Once again, is now we have another government employee trying to take over another angle of ufology, which has been cast aside like a stray cat. And there's just something about it that is not sitting well with me about that. Do you guys notice that as well? Or is it just, my own imagination here?
Well, it has some parallels to Lou Elizondo's recent book. It's like every week there's something new is coming and it's explosive. And in America, it's all about money, and it's about, getting it out there and publicizing it and hyping it. And so we'll see. I mean, to me, when I heard you guys say it till the end of the year, I mean, that's a real bad red flag. I mean, if it's going to take till the end of the year, like you have this conference and it's like this immediate thing, we've got this thing here, but it's going to take us 6 months to produce it. It just doesn't. There's a lot of red flags here, but we'll see what happens. It's up to her to prove it.
Nicole?
Remind me of the question. I pre-thought my answer and then I got sidetracked.
Well, just in regards to whether or not
the public,
experiencer, and if it seems like she's handlers trying to control the answers that she gives.
Well, I think it's easy for how would William put it? Noobs. That's what he calls everybody new to a situation. Noobs. I think it's easy for noobs in our community to get steered one way or the other. And let's face it, I mean, things never really turn out how we think they're going to turn out as soon as we start opening our mouth in this community. But there's a part of me that thinks it was a really brave step. Like, since we started talking the will documents almost a year and a half ago, and now that we're in this disclosure imminent, world that we're in, I've been saying that we're already in that post-disclosure world. We just don't realize it. And what's coming next is the rise of the experiencer. I know you guys have laughed at me when I've said it before, but I really think that we're starting to ride this wave of openness. And as soon as the Pentagon claimed those videos, I think that was strike while the iron is hot, and experiencers are crawling out of the woodwork. Now, we keep saying that we need to get over this being scoffed at or laughed at or ridiculed, or it puts us in an awkward position with our jobs, whatever the excuses are. Now is the time to keep pushing that envelope, because if we don't push it, who else is going to?
Yeah. And there's another thing that comes up here is that people, because the videos have been identified and it's a hot story, everybody and their dog is on here with new stories. And we talked about, just before the show started, these Trump documents, which I showed, and they were sort of described to me as briefing stuff. And that's not how briefings work. And right. So you get people get this stuff that floats around, and people interpret it and run with it, and then eventually someone clarifies it and it sort of falls apart. So there's a lot of these stories. There may be some truth to a lot of these stories, but there's a lot of people putting out stuff because.
And is this a setback, Nicole, for the fact that experiencers are taking the brunt of the anger of a lot of these hosts who are demanding proof, or these bloggers who are demanding proof?
No, I don't think it's a setback, but I think it might speak to that side of researchers out there who fall more towards that nuts and bolts. This is something physical, like Grant was saying earlier. I think those that understand that this is more than just that physical something tend to be more understanding of experiencers. But I think if you fall in that nuts and bolts kind of cutthroat skeptic side, I don't know any experiencers that would risk going on their shows or speaking with them. I think they know that they're kind of come at it from an angle that they don't understand really. So I don't know. It's a catch-22. I think this started with the attacks I saw on Travis Walton. with this latest drama in that anthology. But I don't know. I think anytime one of our own gets picked on, I think it makes us all rally and appreciate each other, and how it does take a certain amount of bravery to continue to talk about our experiences. I think on the inside, we all want to go, oh no, be introverted, go back to your Facebook groups, close the ranks, but we don't, or at least we haven't yet. So, but I stay away from Twitter. If there's yuckiness on Twitter, I haven't been following it.
All right, Grant, what do you think? Because you are somebody who's the last couple of years really gone hard on researching the experiencers.
Well, what you get is science and ufology advance one funeral at a time. I mean, you have people who have no clue what they're talking about. There's all this attack on the free foundation material that it's woo-woo science. And the guy that developed the science for that had done 200 dissertations. He's got a PhD. He's done 200 studies like this with stuff. And you get people who haven't got a PhD, have never done chaired a dissertation of any sort of paper, they're suddenly experts on this. And everybody, it's like the old idea that everybody's the New York Times now, that people are just talking, and people, and I've had this since 75, the people who come across as skeptics just think that they're skeptics because it makes them sound smarter, and it's just hiding the fear. They have no clue what they're talking about.
He really did drop the gloves there. He really did.
I just always think of Philip Class. I just no class. I just
Yeah, but it's more than just him. It's people. Thomas Fessler from his podcast on YouTube has been going after a lot of people out there who are, claiming that every experiencer is a liar because they have no proof, and everything anecdotal should be thrown out. I mean, these are people who are having real experiences, and even if you don't believe them, it's real to them. And go ahead.
Let me make one more point is the fact that what happens is like with Travis Walton, and this was done with people who even like Klaas. If you can take down a big name, you get their power. So you come in and you criticize this, you criticize that. And if you can put doubt on somebody, then that makes you more powerful. And what you do is you become the critic, and you're the sort of like, hand your paper in, I've got a little red pen and I'm going to mark your paper. And that's basically what it comes down to. And I just say these people haven't got a crew. To me, it's left brain interpreter. It's been shown by science. It's just, you got to fill in the hole. And the skeptic comes across as somebody who's very knowledgeable. They're actually very stupid, as Stanton Friedman says. They basically say, don't bother me with the evidence. My mind is already made up. They have not done any reading. They all fall in the same category.
All right. On that note, we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. The legendary Grant Cameron, researcher Nicole Sakach, now adding author to her title. We're going to get into their brand new book when we get back. Triangles, Aliens, The Message. What's it all about? When we return on Spaced Out Radio.
There you go.
All right, we're clear. Remember, the audience can hear us.
We're clear.
We're clear.
So I'll let you start, Nicole. You can explain. I was even thinking today why we even did the book. Like you I think you were behind the.
No, wait. Let me quote you right here.
Uh-oh.
Why did we do the book? Now I said let's do panels, and then you had a synchronicity that led to the book.
Okay, well, you tell the story. I don't remember it.
Combined effort here. Hey, it all started with Bob McGuire.
Yeah. Blame science.
Right.
That's right.
That's when you became famous on Twitter, that you were this.
It started with gossip.
You troublemaker. You stole the story. They dangled the story out and we grabbed it.
It was my first Twitter war.
I forgot.
That deserves a book.
Now, Grant, my hero, my guru, and my good friend Pascal, who's here, I got his name up on screen here. You can blame him for all of my experiences. He's the gentleman and one of my best friends who opened me up to all of this high strangeness. So everything that's happened to me, I blame Pascal for.
Yeah, and once you've experienced this, whether I was with Chris Bledsoe, and that was the first one when that thing with the dog happened. There's absolutely no way you can go anywhere. You go like, wow, this guy's the real deal here. And Bob McGuire will back that up when you've been around these people and it happens to you. If it doesn't happen to you, well, then you're like the Pope talking about sex and marriage. Who cares what you've got to say?
Right? Like, who goes to a priest for marriage advice? Like, that's so strange.
Or the other one, the new analogy they use is these guys are like people who teach meditation and yoga and they've never done it.
I got asked, I used to work at a fitness center for like off and on for a year in my spare time. And I got asked to teach a yoga class and they're like, we'll send you to get certified and then you can teach it. And I was like, what? Isn't this like an experience? But no, I can see how some people do it. But I think if you're going to use yoga and meditation, it's more than just a workout.
Yeah.
At a fitness center. Yeah, I'm kind of redesigning my office space. I want to make it more zen so I could maybe catch a 20-minute meditation.
Wow.
I keep thinking of Stanton's clutter, Grant, like all those pallets. And I'm like, I can't end up that way. I can't end up like Stanton.
But it always does end up that way though. You just got I've got thousands of pieces of paper myself.
The digital age is supposed to help us with this piles of clutter and the 7 gray boxes that I have.
Yeah.
I don't believe that Stanton just had one gray box. I think he had a gray box file cabinet.
Yeah.
Of the stuff he was still looking into.
Or a gray box room. He had numerous rooms that his wife would never go in the garage, and it was. They showed me some of the photos, but they don't want to go public with the photos because it's kind of it's embarrassing. They don't want to have that out there.
I don't know. I think it looks like any crazy old guy's office, honestly.
Yeah, but his was you couldn't. I knew guys at the university were like that. One particular guy, you had to walk sideways to go into his office. The paper was just stacked to the roof. Stan was like that, and that's when the archivist told me. She said, "Stan, like, how could you get it like this?" And he said, "I didn't have a secretary,
Like that's the excuse, right? Like.
But he knew where, and all these guys, it's like that. You can ask them where a piece of paper is, and they'll go to a stack of paper 10 feet tall, and they'll pull it out of the middle of the stack of paper. They know where everything is.
My new boss at the restaurant's like that. We have this drawer, like he's a little shorter than I am, but we have this drawer that's like 3 feet above my head. And I was looking for something. He's like, it's in the middle of that top drawer up there. It's like, how could you even see what's in there? He's like, I put everything in there. So there you go. Organized madness. Do you think it's like part hoarding, but that's like it's not like a gross hoarding thing? Because honestly, I could probably throw away half the crap that I think is like part of my research. And it's just really like meanderings.
Well, it is. And that's where I always say that ufology falls into the trap of becoming like entertainment or like the CE5s. When I went to the Franklin Grove CE5, I go, oh no, not another CE5. I mean, we're going to go and look at some more UFOs. And now we could get into the situation where we're going to spend the next 40 years gathering 100,000 really good UFO photographs. And
Hold on. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including new swag and rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. Grant Cameron and Nicole Sakach are here. They have a brand new book out together. Yep, Triangles, Aliens, and the Message. There it is. And we are very excited to have them back right on this show. Nicole, we're going to start with you. How did this book come together?
Bob McGuire. No, actually, it came together because of this guy right up here. He's just like, hey, I'm doing a book. It's half done. Do this. I did this. Let's talk to this person more. And then, you know, the lovely Desta, I think she's the editor, and she rope-a-dopes family members into putting it together with her. Is that how that goes, Grant?
Yeah, well, I've got the advantage with Desta that I don't have to really edit stuff. So I never read anything I've done. I never listen to anything I've done. I've never watched anything I've done. So I just basically write it, and then I hand it to her, and she sort of finishes it off. And you don't have to worry with people. I don't watch comments. So I don't care.
At one point it was like in pieces. And I know Desda made it coherent. So
yeah, well, we did what, 3 panels or whatever. But Bob McGuire tell the Bob McGuire story, because that was a big thing and it was very controversial. And that was when I got the idea of the triangles, because I had a triangle sighting in '76, which we put in the book. And I remember when I was in Illinois, someone said, "I didn't know you had a triangle sighting. How come you didn't talk about it?" I said, "I've talked about it lots of times because I didn't care about it. I wasn't really interested in it, even though this thing was sitting right above the car." And then, you know, I'd have a situation where I had some guy that I hadn't seen in 30 years or 40 years. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Brian, tell me what happened there." And then he said, "Oh, it had these blue, white lights on it." I go, "No, it didn't. It had green and red lights on it." And that was this whole idea that it's not as simple as people think it is when two people see the same object up close. Mm-hmm. We were close. So people say, "Why didn't you talk about it?" And I said, "Well, I didn't think it was significant. But when Bob McGuire did it, and suddenly we did the panel, and we had all these like reporter people like Dave Scott, and then we had Stephen Greenstreet, we had Billy Cox, and we had from Huffington Post, Steve, what's his name?
Lee
Spiegel. And these guys had all their careers had started with this massive giant triangle thing. And I thought, this is so cool. And so that's where we took the transcripts and converted, because to me is what this is all about. It's not so much you're going to make $1 million on a book, but if you've got a story, you should record it for history and put it out there so that other people can have access to it.
Well, and I think another thing that we tried to encompass was that this isn't just happening in the American Southwest. You know, this is happening all over the Americas. It's happening over in the UK. We didn't have anybody from Australia on our panels, but I know we hooked some stories out there. But it all started with, I think, a little bit of boredom in the community. And everybody was like, what's everybody working on? Who's hearing what? And there was like, everybody was playing this, I'll tell you what so-and-so, but don't tell. And you tell me something, like little game. And I think the big buzz was that Tim McMillan was coming out with something really big on the debrief. And it was allegedly a triangle photo. And we were talking about it in our chat group. And our friend Bob McGuire threw it out there that he had seen this picture or a similar picture. And it just started us on this whole like.
Yeah, that's what surprised me when you said Bob McGuire's seen it. I said, Bob McGuire's seen it. Can you get him for an interview? And you said, yeah, sure. And I said, let's interview Bob McGuire. And that sort of went viral on your YouTube channel. And it was like all over Twitter. And it's like these people stole this story. But the thing was, they dangled it. It's a story. They dangled it out there. And we're prompting it like they were going to get this big thing. And suddenly they were upset that we'd scooped the story. And
and I think that's
Let me tell you the backstory. Let me tell you the backstory that you guys may not know, because when that happened, I was on the phone after this show with Tim McMillan.
Yeah.
And when the photo was coming out, and we were on the phone it was an hour 45 into the conversation. So I got off air, I hang up and do my editing that I do after the show. So about 12:30 my time, I say goodnight to the YouTube crowd. I get on the phone with Tim McMillan for an hour and 45 minutes, almost 3 o'clock my time when this is now going on. And he goes, "Oh, crap, I got to go. I just got the photo." And that ended up being the Batman balloon type photo, but I knew all about this because he was really, really upset that this had come out. And I was calming him down, saying, look, don't blame McGuire. Don't blame Nicole. Don't blame Grant. Blame the idiot who released it on Twitter, who stole a private conversation. And this is where it all went viral. And I got Tim calmed down. And this is where you guys then took over, and everybody's exploding on you guys for it. And then I'm defending you guys on Twitter, that's basically saying if you knew how journalism works, they did their job.
Well, and I think I know I can speak for myself on this. It was just a little bit of like, nobody has triangles cornered. I'm going to run triangles into the ground. It was like, that was my goal. I was like, triangles everywhere. Like me and my son started doing this. Triangles.
Yeah, we put that photo in the book with your son doing that. Yeah.
That was kind of like a little bit of the inspiration though, because it was like we had heard of these massive triangles and the big, multi-witness over like Phoenix and the Hudson Valley. And we knew of Marlar's work, but then it was just like that little synchronicity. It was like, it prompted me to think, ooh, where's the stories? Have we heard of anybody on board? And then Melinda has her onboard story. And it was just amazing. I really liked that it inspired Grant to want to throw it together into a book. And it came together, I think, quickly. So it was nice that it was still fresh. And honestly, we're still getting triangle feedback. Like people are still watching those panel discussions and commenting and sending me like sighting stories. And so it's just building and growing. So
yeah, and even the stuff we learned after that, where Marlar came out after that and said no triangles ever been recorded landing. Mm-hmm. And then I'm thinking like that's almost like UFOs. Like UFOs, when I started in the 70s, there was all these what we called ground traces. The Stan used to talk about the physical evidence, the 4,000 landing ground trace things. But that hasn't happened for years, decades. That hasn't happened for it, where they land and burn the grass and leave the tripod marks and stuff like that. And then when Marlar said this thing, no triangles ever been recorded landing, then it was sort of like, wow, maybe there is something to this. What is this really? And then the military caught on with the triangle because Bob had the second story with the submarine, which really got the thing going. And, nobody ever produced a photo on that. But the story got so big. And then these other triangle sightings came out. And then China, they had the sighting in China over top of that building. And then that was the same. It looked like the one that was in Washington and the one that was in Moscow. And it was sort of like triangles are now the big thing. And a lot of the ATIP thing where there are these triangles and they're all hoax and stuff like that. But the thing was that triangles, Marlar will say they've been gone back into history, but still triangles. When I had one in 76, I didn't know anybody that had a triangle sighting in 76. And I didn't even think it was significant in 76. The triangles are sort of, I'd say are a more recent development, that they are, you may get some back in the 50s or 60s, but not the kind of triangles you're getting now. It's like, see, the main thing. And the other big thing about the triangles was triangles are not like little tiny triangles. They're like, a mile or 2 miles across. And we had all those witnesses that described that. The thing was from one side of the sky to the other side. It was that big. And that was the thing is, if you're saying that's military, why would the military build a craft that's big to drop, bombs on Taliban tents or whatever? I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's the big point here. The big argument with these black triangles that people are seeing is, are they these alleged TR-3Bs that people say are part of the secret space program, or are they of some other type of extraterrestrial or alien descent? And how are they getting here? And if they are human, where are they parking these? Because a craft that big isn't going to fit into a regular hangar. They got to have some secret base on some secret island, whether it's up in Alaska or Diego Garcia or wherever.
Or why would you build one that big? Like, what's the purpose? Because I remember George Knapp was talking to the head guy from the Roadrunners, and he was talking about what are they doing at Area 51 now? And he basically said, well, basically everything's going to be subsonic and it's all drone stuff. So they're going to smaller stuff that can move around without pilots and stuff. Like, it doesn't make any sense. You have a craft this big. And then it still comes back to this theory of wow thing, that in 1890, the ships were wooden and they had big propellers on them and sails and stuff like that. And then there were these little Foo Fighters on the edges of the planes. Then there were green fireballs. Then there were Adamski crafts with balls hanging off the bottom. Then there were saucers, and now they're triangles. And it's like the phenomena keeps changing. And I keep telling people, you got to look back on the whole history of ufology and see that it's not the same things happening now as happened then. It's almost like somebody's turning the pages of a book. And this is like, take a look at this. It's like, this is really weird stuff. And people are just going, wow, what's going on here? And I think they're just making us think, whatever this phenomenon is.
Yeah. And I think we did shine a light that not every, what we call triangle is that classic, what people call a TRB. It seems like most of them are massive, like you said, miles, or, take up the entire skyline, or, encompass an entire valley, like Hudson Valley. Yeah. But they're also that chevron shape, the V. And then we encountered the ones that were more pyramid shape, or at least a triangle with like a 3D dorsal fin on them, or sometimes they were just described as like diamonds, like, that sort of 3D, not just kind of flat or anything. But so it was interesting. I did get a lot of questions like that after our panels, or even after we kind of blurbed about the book when it first came on. Everybody was like, have you, did you guys talk about this, or which case, was more this shape? And it's like, yeah, look at this one. Or look at that one.
The other things that were interesting was like with the Phoenix one, where they're flying at a couple hundred feet off the ground. Like if you're testing the TR-3B, you're not going to fly at a couple hundred feet over top of Phoenix, Arizona. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. And the other thing was, and Lynn Katai brought this up, and other people have, is the lack of abduction phenomena. That they had 10,000 people or whatever saw the Phoenix lights, and no reports of abductions during that period of time, which indicates something else is going on here. And that's always, to me, is it becomes more, it may become stranger and stranger the more you look at the phenomena. That there's less answers than you started with. It just gets more and more complex, and that's where I think they may be changing up what's people are actually seeing. Or the thing where Kit Green mentioned that, when he talked to experiencers, the experiencer study that they did. And that was the whole thing where you can have two people looking at the same object and they see two different things. And I still was shocked when this guy he became an aeronautical engineer, went to Finland, came back. And that's when I said to him, Brian, I haven't talked to you since we had this sighting back in 76. I want to interview you. And when I got him on tape and he started talking about these bluish white lights and the metal, and I'm going, metal? What do you mean metal? I didn't see any metal. And he was sitting in the back seat when this thing happened. And then I'm thinking, like, what's going on here? He was describing it was a triangle, but it was totally different lighting formation. He saw metal. I didn't see metal. And that's when you see the phenomena starts getting really strange as to what are we actually looking at? Are we manifesting? Are we seeing part of what we're seeing? Or is it some object out there?
Right.
I have seen two triangles in my life. The first one was a completely lit up undercarriage of silver orbs connected by orange rods. From front to back. The second one, your classic 3 dots. And when you talk about the size of the triangles, I mean, this one was massive. This one would literally cover a city that I saw.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so when I look at that, I think, okay, if this is human made, we make things the same. We don't differentiate on F-16s. We don't differentiate on F-18s or F-15s or the F-117. Everything is built in the same to manufacturer status. So I don't see us making these human TR-3Bs, with different light sources underneath the undercarriage.
Well, that's the thing though too, like you bring up, any type of experimental aircraft like that isn't mass produced. You know what I mean? Like there's not 10 of them. And so if you do a little digging into this, and I'm totally loving Cheryl and Linda's Costa's book still. Think about how many triangle sightings are reported in the United States in a month. So those highly classified, super special built things are moved all over the country so we can have sightings all at the same time. I mean, I just,
Or in Canada, when I
Right.
had mine was 1976, about 20 miles north of the American border. And I said, if this was actually American secret technology, it should have done a little bit better in Vietnam than they did. I mean, it was like this, or you think where Billy Cox's sighting was back in the 70s, and his was like technology that was way beyond anything you can even think of now. And the same as, remember when Lee Spiegel talked about his, I think his was in the 70s as well, where he had police officers and they're actually moving around the country with this thing. They're chasing it around, which is what we were doing. And you look at that and you go, no, this is something way more complex. Because I'd seen the triangle sightings, but the ones that we got, even Lee Spiegel, he was volunteered by Marler. We didn't even invite him. They said, oh, can he come on the show? Yeah. Oh, sure, And I think we put out an alert for triangle sightings, and people just swamped us. The same as when we did the art thing. We said, has anybody got any art connection with UFOs? And we're doing another one this weekend. We got absolutely swamped with people who are artists and experiencers at the same time.
I love it. I love it. Actually, one of our art interviews, I was so excited. When I went to the Making Contact Convergence, they had an entire art gallery on display virtually. And our friend April, she had like 4 featured pieces in it. It was really nice. So
yeah, that's the thing is once you start looking across the thing, you take all the triangle sightings or all the people who are into musicians that had the UFO. I did the book on musicians and UFOs, or the art in UFOs. We may even do a book on that because there was just so many. And you see this pattern and you say, is this a random pattern or is this telling us something? And
we touched on a few musicians in this book too that have had sightings and then have either been prompted to get a triangle tattoo or end up with the triangle marks. We briefly touched on the triangle body marks. So
yeah, which is very bizarre. I mean, that's where I always say, I mean, the one woman is from Winnipeg here. She sort of helped edit the book. Karen, and she had the triangle on her wrist, and it was the clearest triangle you've ever seen. We put it in the book. And the thing is, why would whatever this phenomenon is, why is it putting triangles on people's wrists? I mean, that you got to start wondering what's actually going on. Or the thing with the latest thing where I don't know if you saw these guys, George Knapp had them on, they're called the Summoners. And then the one guy's got this really close thing where he's watching this thing back a number of years ago, and the lights come out and they form this complete equilateral triangle. Well, Chris Bledsoe had one of those as well. So the question to me is like when you see a UFO and it turns into a triangle, what is that? A pre-abduction maneuver? Are they going to eat a little girl? Or like, why are they making triangles? And they're making triangles because, as we pointed out, the triangle is the basic core of the universe, where everything's made out of triangles.
Let me read this beautiful quote by Stan Sparks. The aliens use symbols to establish a common ground of communication. It's a faster form of communication. And I think that kind of prompted us on this, okay, triangles. And, our pal Sinead has the 3s and we kind of all have the 3s, but she's really into it. But, triangles, 3 sides, what does 3 means? We found out that the triangle shape in and of itself, you can find in all other shapes. Was it every other shape you can find a triangle in?
Yeah, the triangle is the basic. That's the example. That was where we got that from. That the guy who got beat up in the bar. He's a savant. He can suddenly see pi and he can draw pi and stuff. He's the guy that said triangles are the basic. Everything's made out of triangles, and there are no real circles. That's why pi will never be. It'll always keep going because you can keep putting smaller and smaller triangles, and it will never cover the edge of the circle. There's always going to be a little space there. And so that when I saw that, and I'm thinking, well, that may be what it is, or the different symbols. Why do they show symbols to people like alien writing and stuff like that? Right. It just gets more and more complex. And as I keep reporting to people, this did not happen in the 70s and 80s. It just did not happen. It's something new. It's like they're turning the pages of a book. They're introduce this, introduce that. Now let's show them this. And it just gets more complex, weirder, and makes almost no more sense than it did in 1975. It looks a lot more like a pattern. In 75, everything was believed to be random. We believed if you saw a UFO, you were crazy. If you saw 2 UFOs, the UFO community would talk to you because you were definitely crazy. It was a random event. And now we're starting to realize that experiencers are people like Chris Bledsoe who can go out almost every single night and he can pick up stuff, and he's picking up triangles, and that this is a phenomena that has patterns. Or we had this thing about the whole thing about music, where you look at Roger Lear, who did all the alien implants, and they said, what's common between all experiences? He said, they're all right-brain creative people, and there's thousands of them in Hollywood, and all implants on the left side of the body, which is run by the right brain. And you start seeing that, and you start seeing these patterns that indicate this may be a lot more complex than what people think it is.
And it is. It's hard. That's why I keep joking, like there could be a book too. I mean, just with it seems like every neat thing we find, it's like there's another rabbit hole to dive into. And it kind of links these other avenues we kind of look into before. Like I know years ago, I was looking into this trifecta, and how this right and left, right hand of God, left hand of God, trifecta symbolism, and that kind of has, tied into what we were finding with the triangles and symbol communication and it having specific meaning. And we didn't really get to have that panel discussion. We wanted to bring in the number guys, the sacred geometry people who can speak this language a little better than we can, but we kind of got lost in that. So I think we could revisit it and, kind of focus it a little more.
Even the one that we didn't do was your friend Jim Peniston, the triangles and the whole thing about the mathematics dealing with the pyramid. There's a whole
Well, and that's where his co-author comes into play, Gary Osborne. I would just love to listen to Gary talk for 3 hours about sacred geometry.
But then you need Bob McGuire there, because that stuff makes my head spin. You need Bob McGuire to sort of sort it all out for us.
I don't know. It's like my dream panel. I want like Phil Gruber, Gary Osborne, and Jack Sarfati all on a panel together so we can just like triple mind blow everybody.
Why not? We got about 30 seconds left here, and I don't know what this technology is. I don't think many of us know what this technology is. I think for those of us who've had close encounters with it, we do think that it is more alien than it is any type of human type craft, even though you never know, there could be secret designs out there on that craft. Who knows? I'm on Team Alien for that one. Hashtag Team Alien for the TR3Bs. Grant Cameron is here, the legendary researcher, and of course, researcher Nicole Sakach. They got a brand new book out, can be found on Amazon. It is called Triangles, Aliens, and Messages. What's the aliens all about? That's what we're going to get to next when we kick off hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio. Don't forget, at the bottom of hour number 3, it's the latest edition of Dave 101. Should Lou write a book? That's our topic tonight. Lou Elizondo, an author? Let's get into it. Big night tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Stay tuned.
Your Dave 101s are like...
What are you talking about?
They always get lots of chatter the next day. That's what I'm talking about. It's like, I don't know. I love it because it's like a thought that, I think a lot of us have over the years. It's like, I'm just going to lay it out there, give my 101 school thoughts and yeah.
I know, right?
It almost, in a comedic way, reminds me of Peter Griffin's. You know what grinds my gears?
Wow. Then she'll say I'm starting to look like Peter Griffin.
No, but funny man.
I was actually in Vegas one time at the Luxor, and my buddies and I were walking to this club, and we walked past this slot machine, and literally there is a guy, absolute twin to Peter Griffin. He's about 6 feet, about 380 pounds. He's got the white short sleeve shirt on with the necktie, and he's got the green pants on to match and the round glasses, same hair. And we were just like, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me right now. Yes. Hey, 416, how are you? Good to see you. Grant got in a hockey fight and got a detached retina, so he had to have emergency surgery. That's what happens when you play old-timers hockey in Winnipeg.
That's the other guy.
Exactly. The other guy suffered a broken nose and a concussion. Just playing audio.
Been a long time. All right. We're going to do a little number for you, but remember, we're a bit rusty.
I can't play this. I can't play that. I'll get in trouble. No, I had to mute you. I apologize. I could get in trouble for that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but we could.
I was going to lip sync.
We could just start singing, "My Little Buttercup has
the sweetest smile."
Cute little buttercup.
No, honestly, Dave, I think everybody wants us to do the.
Yeah. All right. Hi, Nikki.
That got voted fan favorite of the movie, by the way.
Yes. Hi, Nikki in Seattle. Hi, Glenn John McEnroe, the pride of Wimbledon. And the gorgeous Kim Jellin, who has just arrived. The lovely Paula W. watching over on Twitch. And Manuel, we will eventually, once we get a proper phone system, allow phone calls. But we don't have that right now. Solar Warden, Dima, you step up to the big leagues and get yourself a sub-ohm vaping rig. No, that's just too powerful for me. Way too powerful for me. I'm not that mature yet. Not that mature. And let's see. How can you get a broken nose and concussion in hockey? You have heavily armored men slapping at each other. Well, what happens there, Uncle Dale, is when you are wearing no face protection and your helmet comes off in a fight, or you take a shoulder pad to the chin, that'll knock you out. Yeah. That'll knock you out.
It's the only sport, though, where unless you got a broken leg, you just go to the bench. You don't lie there and roll around like a soccer player.
Exactly. Grant, if you could have seen my final fight in hockey, I lost it, and this guy was right-handed and I'm left-handed, and we each grabbed onto each other's collars, and there was absolutely no blocking. Throw them as fast as you can. It was like 1 minute of just bang, bang, bang. And then he got me 3 times straight in the nose. He busted my nose on the first shot, and then he cracked me 2 more times on the nose. I'm down to I even went for nose surgery. Didn't work. I've got which side is it? My right side, I have a 10% oxygen. Could get 10% of my nostril is open, and on my left side, 8%.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the other thing people don't realize is when you're in the fight and you're hitting some guy in the helmet, it hurts. It hurts.
You know what though? When you hit the helmet the first time, it hurts. But then your knuckles go numb, and then you're fine. Then you're just fine. Steve Franchise, how are you, man? Oh no, I could not have made pro. I was just a shitty goon. That's all I was. Gorgeous Lynn Sows, did you ever play a Finnish hockey team? I did once. Back in my Bantam A days. Chris Holm, how you doing? Good to see you. And let's War Eagle. All right.
Goon is my favorite hockey movie, by the way.
That's a terrible movie.
It is.
The original
terrible.
There's only one hockey movie, and that's the original Slapshot. All right, a big thank you to G West, Marty, Ozzy Ange, Kira, Space Cow, Pascal, Science Bob, Mennonite Abe, and Ozzy Simon for the great super chats. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you so much for your help. And thank you to all the veterans who are tuning into the show tonight. We really appreciate it. You always have a home here on Spaced Out Radio. And, of course, all our regulars who are tuned in, like Fapster and Magnus, We really appreciate you guys joining us on a nightly basis. You make it a lot of fun. So thank you so much. We're going to get going here in about 15 seconds, and we're having some fun. We're going to have some fun here in hour 2. So stay tuned. And then don't forget, bottom of hour number 3, Dave 101. Should Luis Elizondo be ripped by the UFO community for writing a book? Let's get to it.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this planet we call Earth. Thank you to everyone tuned on in to our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. All you got to do is go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Welkin. Welkin is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. We got new swag, so check that on out. We also got, you can rock out to Bumblefoot and read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with legendary researcher and author Grant Cameron. He is here with researcher Nicole Sakach. They have a brand new book out called Triangles, Aliens, and Messages. Can be found on Amazon. And, I already got people like Fylth asking Nicole, can they get an autographed copy?
Yes. Yes. From both of us, it might take. How long did it take to ship them to me? 4 weeks? You might get it in 8.
Well, that's in the United States. You have the advantage in the United States. I should tell a story. We don't really sell books in Canada because it's at least $25 to ship a book to the United States.
Right.
In the United States, I think it was $2.85 the last time I was mailing books in the United States. So you got the advantage down there that you have a book rate where you can actually sell books. In Canada, it's impossible.
We figured that out with Stanton Friedman, right? Like he was like coming into the States to mail stuff from Canada, and that was one of the reasons the FBI was watching him.
Yeah, he was living right at the border there, and he'd do all his mailing from the United States, and he was very frugal, Stan. So he was
right. So what I need to do is I need to send you a bunch of books, and you need to sign them, and then I don't even know how that works out. But to get us both to sign a book, I guess we both need to be in the same place. But I can send you one.
Yep.
But I will send you one for free, but you have to come on and talk about your cartoons that you do for the community. That's the switch off, Filthy.
Oh, yes. Dirty Fylth, our resident artist here on Spaced Out Radio. And you know what? He's already drawing a picture up of you, Grant. He's already drawing a new picture up of you. So anyways, let's move on here to part 2 of your book, which is called Triangles, Aliens, and Messages. Let's talk about the aliens here for a second. How did this come up in this book, Grant?
I just use the word alien. I throw it around. The more I look at it, the less I think it's alien. And I've said that, and I start to insist that it's. I think it's going to be much more complex. I'm more into the Jacques Vallée thing. That something very strange is going on. It's almost like you're sort of downplaying God or the universe. The universe is much more complex, and like that expression I used earlier, that we're in the part of the wave particle thing where we're in the particle side, and the rest of the universe is in the wave side, and it can pop into this environment like the whole Leslie Kane. I always bring up the example of her where I make her tell the story when I interviewed her about the hand. I said, Leslie, tell me about the hand. And she talks about this hand that comes up off the table. It's sort of like watery, and then it turns into this hand. And it said it happened a number of times, and she could feel the hand and touch it, and it was warm, and she could feel the knuckles, and it was as real as any hand. And then this thing just sort of disappears and dematerializes sort of off the edge of the table. And that's, I think, what's going on is this phenomena can come in to the physical world and it can manifest as a physical being or whatever it is. Almost like I said to Nicole to be involved in this interview with Yossi Ronan, who's an experiencer out of Israel. He wrote the book called The One. And that's what they told him. When we come into your world, we take on a body. We can take on whatever body we want. We don't need to have a body, but we do. You can do the same thing. You just don't realize it. And that's this. So this whole idea, I always play up the alien thing. But I think it's going to end when it comes down to it. It's almost like 200 years ago. We don't believe anything we believed 200 years ago in science. And, it just keeps going where it gets more complex and more complex and more complex. And I think it's going to be a lot less physical than people think it is. But I just use the word alien. It may have some ET component somehow, but still, it's much more complex than just this. Nuts and bolts. An alien got lost, or they land. The one story we had where they land and the guy comes out of the craft and he asks this guy, gives him a pail and goes and asks him to get a pail of water for him. And it's like come across the galaxy and you're looking for a pail of water. It's to me, it's always comes to this theory of wow thing that they want you to see it, they want you to look at it, they want you to think about it, but they pull the rug out from under you when you try to figure out what it is. They never give you the full answer, and it's just to make us reevaluate the fact we're not alone, that the world is much more complex than we think it is. So that's my thing on alien. Maybe Nicole, you can talk about your take on the word we used, alien.
Well, I think it's kind of like you said, it gives us something to push back on because I don't think either of us really think it's aliens, like extraterrestrial aliens. And I think it's the same, like the lingo's wrong or they're trying to get us to change it, like UFO to UAP. Like I'm always going to say UFO. I might throw out UAP every once in a while. It's just like this transition from calling them ET to aliens to ultra extra terrestrial dimensional, like future time travelers. We started calling it the phenomenon, or I like it when you refer to it as the intelligence. It's the intelligence, and that I think encompasses more than just ufology. Like we try to push that envelope of the spiritual or the paranormal, and so the intelligence makes sense to me.
Last week I did a presentation on the presidents, and then I say, what does the president actually know? And I start quoting the highest level people, because that's how I got into the presidents. The highest level person you can find. What does this person say? Just listen carefully to what they're saying, and you get people like Jim Semivan saying, How do you describe it when there does not appear to be any there? And this is a guy who had the beings in his room. He was face to face with the intelligence. Right. Lou Elizondo saying, well, is it off-world or on-world? Well, there's other possibilities. He starts sort of going down this road of saying, well, there could be other things. He starts talking about quantum physics. And I remember Yossi Ronan came to me when that happened. He said, did you hear what Lou Elizondo said? I said, yeah, I heard what Lou Elizondo said. And he said, so we did a podcast on just what Lou Elizondo said, where Lou said, hey, open your mind. This may not be as alien as you think it is. And when I got this high level intelligence back, where I asked, did this guy actually say this? And the thing was, because we cannot control the phenomena, we watch the people that the phenomena affects. And that's this whole idea where Kit Green tells Jim Peniston that we're doing we've got 8 guys and we're doing this study on experiencers. And we're trying to figure out how do they pop in and pop out. So this whole idea that these high level guys realize this is not as simple as we think it is, or even like to the stars. People don't even pick up on this. What did To the Stars call them? The others. Now you had Lou Elizondo there, you had Mellon there, you had Justice there, you had Semivan, and they're not using the word alien. They're using the others as if they're specifying, we really don't know what this is.
Well, we hear the others, the visitors, and the invisibles, I think, out of that kind of upper echelon. And I like all of them, actually. And I think that shows the diversity that they really can't pinpoint what this is or come to a conclusion on their own. And I think that's where it rubs up against where we hear like how this topic gets shut down with like the evil demon talk. You know, there's people out there that, you know, look at this with that lens of spirituality, where we talk about the others or the intelligence, you know, as sometimes even our higher self, you know. So that gets really difficult if you want to pin it down and just say alien. But I do think that's why we like poking the bear. And I think saying the word alien allows you to open up that conversation and poke the bear.
Yeah, people know what you're talking about. You're not necessarily defining, but people, it's like if you start using some non-human intelligence, people really know. People, when you use the word UFO and alien, people know what you're talking about.
Well, and anybody who takes this to the next level and starts looking into this, they soon discover that the word alien has many meanings. So there you go. Or it's not that go-to what they thought alien was. You know, little green men.
Isn't that breaking it down, though, to make the field look a little bit more foolish in front of the mainstream public when we break things down to such a minute scale with different terminologies, political correctness? I mean, we even got Angeli coming on there saying that aliens believe the word alien is racist. I mean,
I forgot about that one.
I mean, let's just call it what it is. If they're not from here, they are aliens. I have no problem with that. Or extraterrestrials. We don't need to call them the others or whatever. I mean,
that's just it. Like
okay, but let me give you another example. So you're saying they're not from here. Yeah. I was on with Brian Bender from Politico, and Brian Bender brought up the fact that the Defense Department, and nobody's gone on this, the Defense Department did a study on interdimensionality of this phenomena. And they said it may be here, just a different here. So it may not be from out there. It all may be one. There's no time, there's no space. There's just one thing. It's all here. It's all now. There's only one electron. When you start looking at the quantum physics stuff and these weird ideas of the universe, you start to realize if we it's the idea of disclosure. When someone says, "Oh, when's disclosure coming?" The obvious question is, "What's your definition of disclosure?" And everybody always says, "Well, when they tell me that the reptilians are eating little girls, or when the aliens come." Everybody's got their version. They want the government to tell them their version of what they think is actually going on. And I say at the bottom of the whole thing is, we really don't know what's going on. We really don't know what's out there. And you listen to these high-level guys, even Chris Bledsoe, and you see that it changes. So Nancy Tremaine, when she first saw the being, she was the first, before Betty and Barney Hill, 2 months before, when she first saw it, it was a reptilian. Then I said, "But Nancy, when you were on the ship in 1961, you saw Mister. What did he look like?" "Oh, he was a human being with dark hair." And then he said, "Well, what does he look like now?" "Now he's an etheric being." And Chris Bledsoe said the same thing. When he first saw the beings in 2007, they were tall, bluish green beings. And then they saw them in 2012 when they pulled them for the Shining Lady. They were like etheric beings in hoods. And you see the beings are even changing themselves. So we really, in the bottom, don't know if they're out there, what they are. It's just something it gets more puzzling, and it's very important. It doesn't discount the stories that these people are telling. These people are telling the stories that they're telling. It's just that our interpretation will be, I think, very much different 100 years from now than it is right now as to what's going on.
All right. Well, what type of alien species are people seeing these days? Is it still the grays mostly that people are seeing? Are we getting into other types of beings, Nicole?
I don't know. I don't like speaking on this because, like Grant just said, it's like one person's reptilian, 3 experiences later, and you have a light being. Like, that's what I think has been so amazing for me to learn, because I was kind of pigeonholed into thinking, okay, there's definitely grays. It's all grays. Reptilians are silly. What are these mantid things? And it's like, that was also very compartmentalized. But then as soon as I entered experiencer land and started joining these groups and talking with these people, that's when you come across, like, I'll call it the trifecta again. Some people see multiple beings in the same experience. So I don't know.
And that's what I always said in the past. I said, well, why do you have all these different beings on the ship? Are they exchanging people? First the Greys get them and these people get them. What you see a lot of them is when they first have the experience, whenever you see Grey in an experience, you have fear connected to it. And that's what John Max seemed to look at, was he said to Bud, he said, Bud, isn't it kind of weird, Bud? I'm getting all the spiritual speaking ones and you're getting all the real difficult ones. And I'm the psychiatrist here. He said, maybe that has more to do with you and I than it does with the beings. And that's this whole idea of manifestation, that somebody will see a Grey and it's all fear, their first experiences with a Grey. And then later on, it changes like Chris Bledsoe, where it's etheric beings. And it's, the etheric being is the number one. The energy being is bigger than the Greys. The Greys are not number one. But then, of course, people will say, well, the free foundation material isn't reliable or whatever. And because I have my skeptical mind, I can downplay, years of research that they did and 3,000 experiencers, and I just don't believe it. And that is equivalent to 3,000 experiencers and a study. No, it's not. The number one being is this energy being. And Yossi Ronan, I think, was the best because he had the green beings. And you see, and when I did what I did before, is people say the Greys. So what I did is I took all the Greys and I put them on a PowerPoint. So I took Betty Andreasen's Grey. I took Whitley Strieber's Grey. I took Betty and Barney Hill's Grey. And I put them Grey, 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 Grey. None of them look the same. They're all completely different. The way they have ridges and they have all this kind of stuff. And so we are part of what we're experiencing. The idea that there's a separate out there is I look at it as more questionable. That like Yossi Ronan says, that when they come in, they can appear as whatever they want. And then when Yossi Ronan said when they left these green beings, they grabbed hands, they made a circle, and they started to circle, and they went faster and faster and faster, and they turned into translucent. Almost like Mark Sims described. His being, Tajabar, was translucent, turned into a ball of light, got smaller and smaller and disappeared. So is it actually an alien? Or is it a ball of light? And if it's a ball of light, because they eat bacon, eggs, toast, and coffee, they can change to whatever they want. And I maintain they are changing as they go along with experiences, because experiencers will describe through their experience, the beings are changing as their experience goes on, it becomes less fearful, the beings change. So it's just a sort of a empty pit of not making any sense. And I think we are part of the experience we're having.
It makes sense when we follow this train of thought or this hypothesis we have about you get what you give, or you get what you bring into it. Like, and you brought up the Greys kind of manifest if there's fear involved. Well, that is one thing I think we discovered with different beings, or at least I found out. It's like there are these encounters with the beings where it's like pure joy and love, and you experience that oneness. Like our friend, oh man, I'm just spazzing on her name right now. We just did her radio show on KGRA. Tiffany, she talks about the mantis beings, and everybody that talks about the mantis, it's like overwhelming love. It's like that parental child love. It's just like undeniable. So I know a lot of people describe that from the light beings as well. And the other interesting thing that we come across is, it seems like anybody who can ask these beings what they are, like, are you an alien? You get that, not exactly, like response. It's that, almost, or if that's how you need to think of me, that's okay. But I'm not really that.
That's a good point. Because people will, when they have the experiences with experiences, they always say, "Oh, did it hurt? Did they scare you? Were you really scared?" Stuff. I always ask the question, "Do you have any clothes on?" No. Do you have any sex organs? The raping women. Do you have any sex organs? No. And then I always say, "Did you ask him if he's an alien?" And Nancy Tremaine asked, and it's like, "No, we've always been here." Or Sherry Wilde, when Dot said he was from Andromeda and he's a Grey, the publisher said, "Hey, this is wrong. He can't be. He's got to be from Zeta Reticuli. He's a Grey." And so she went to Dot and says, "Are you actually an alien?" No, that would not best describe who I am. I'm an etheric being on a mission in the cosmos for the Creator. Or I had the ones and I invited you. I hope you can come to this meeting with the beings in London. So they wanted to meet with me. They wanted me to do a book on them. So what they told me was, we're actually beings that call themselves carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. but they're just beings. They don't have any faces. They don't have anything. And they said, we're actually from here. But if you want us to be aliens, we can take you to our planet and show you our planet if you want to do that. But we're actually just from here, and you are the visitor. That's what they said to me. You are the visitor. You're only here for 60 years. We've always been here. And that's the thing, is when you start actually asking questions, or Betty Andreasen, when I asked her husband, her and her husband had 1946, their first encounter with the Greys. I said, did you ask them, or did they ever get any older? And the husband said, no, never got any older. 1946 to now, it looked exactly the same as it did now, or they had the being in their last lifetime. And it starts to fall apart when you actually start asking the question of who they are. And you start to realize that it's like I say, all the world's a stage. All the men and women and aliens are but actors. They have their entrances and exits, and each man plays many roles. We are pretending to be humans. We are etheric beings taking on a human body. They are etheric beings taking on an alien body, and it's all a play. And I maintain that when you die, your first thought is, oh my God, it was all a play. It was all made up. I made the whole play up. And we're going to be having a big fight where I'm going to say to Nicole, you get the Academy Award when you Nicole, you actually believed you were Nicole. You actually bought into it. You actually thought you were actually the actor. We are not the actor on this stage. We are playing an actor on a stage. Big difference.
Very true. We got about 2 minutes left here to talk about the aliens that are here. Where are they from? Where did they go? Where are they hiding? Where are their homes? We really do not know. And I agree with you guys on that. I mean, could it be interdimensional? Let
me give you another point that I always bring up. The Greys, I maintain, were not seen before 1961. People say, oh yeah, I think they were before. No. 61 is when they began. And what's his name? The guy who draws all the Greys, or draws all the beings. I can't remember his name. I asked him, I said, when was the first reptilian? He said, about 1988. And that people don't realize that. They don't realize this has only been happening in the last couple of years, as if, okay, now let's give them some reptilians, and then we're going to bring these couple of beings in and stuff like that. And that's where you get to this idea, the theory of wow, that they seem to be changing the playbook as we go along. That, in the 50s, they were all in suits. And I point out, if you look at the sightings between 47 and 61, before the Greys appeared, when you look, they had helmets. They had bubble helmets, like astronauts, with little tubes coming out the back. And people were describing this, and you can see it's part of 1940, 1950 movies. People are part of what they're seeing. Or in the 50s, where they're all human beings, and they're like wearing suits and stuff.
The beings described on the airships were dressed just like the people and waving to people down on the ground.
Weird, yeah. Weird things, and that's where they said where they had weird clothes, and they asked them, where are you from? Mars. And I say to people, do you actually believe that these wooden ships with propellers flew in from Mars in 1895? I mean, give your head a shake. It's much more complex than what people think it is.
Right.
All right. On that note, I'm going to get you guys to hold on, because we are through the first half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. The second half continues right after this, with author and researcher and mentor of mine, Grant Cameron, researcher, and one of my buddies in this field, Nicole Sakach. We absolutely love both of them around here. And yes, you are number one, Nicole. You are number one. And of course, don't forget, hour number 3, should Lou Elizondo be torn apart by UFO Twitter because he's writing a book? Come on, let's get real. The Message in Triangles, Aliens and Messages, next on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we're clear.
Good.
Well, I guess what I could throw into that last bit about aliens is, my downloads have been, you don't need to see us. You don't need to see what we're there. We're here. You don't need to see what we look like. And then when I was doing all that intense meditation and trying to channel my thoughts, and I was asking to see them, and I got the eyes. And then later when I spoke with my channeler friend, he was like, well, I've been called an Eben, so you can call me an Eben. And I asked if he was the gray, one of the grays that I saw with the eyes. And he said, sort of, I am 1 or 3. I can be all 3 or 1 or 2 or 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know,
They
and
can
just
move
that
into whatever they
sort
want.
of, you know, it's like, but that's all I saw were the almond eyes. And it made me even go, what? You know, and they like, I did not see like a physical body. It was like the eyes, and then my vortex just was gone. It was like seeing him through the James Bond tunnel when his gun scopes across, like that was my vision. 3 sets of eyes, and then just dissipated into nothing. So I think that was my teaser. It was like, well, we got to show her something so she'll meditate on something else.
And that's where I say that when you look at the beings, you don't get beings who come in and they have dinner with you and they're there for a couple of weeks or whatever. You have this little glimpse. You get a little like a little wow thing. It's like, wow, what's going on here? And that's all they show you, and they make you think, and they drag you down that sort of rabbit hole.
And then I don't know how many people you've heard talk about this experience, but I've now come across 3 people who encounter the Greys as children, and they're really apprehensive at first. And then it's like, so their second encounter, a dead relative will be there to like let them know that it's okay to go with these beings. And then the experience changes for them, and it's good from then on out. So,
yeah. And I believe Chris Bledsoe used to, he talked about one time about cowboys when he was a little kid, these little cowboys that he was playing with or whatever, something like that. And that's the thing is they're using the screen image, and Stan Sparks mentioned that. I remember the story where he's on board the ship and the being appears as a military guy. And he said, "Oh, you're playing games again. You're screen imaging. You haven't even got the right uniform on." And he said, as soon as he said that, the uniform changed to the right uniform instantaneously.
Yep. That's wild.
That's
awesome. So they can get in your head. That's what Barbara Streisand's stepson told me. When they come into the world, they go into your head, and they use what's in your head to teach you a lesson. And if you're in fear, they're going to use fear to teach you a lesson. All they can do is use what's in your head to teach you. So they're taking stuff out of your mind, and they're manipulating it around, and that's how they're teaching you the message. But they're not. I don't believe they're in this world. They're in this other wave world or whatever, and they come in and they interact with us. It's just crazy to think that there's a UFO that's there that we just happen to capture, because people always describe the same thing. It was there. It wasn't doing anything. It was only there for a couple seconds and it disappeared. And everybody has the same sort of weird story where they get triggered and they go down the rabbit hole. And
Yep. I'm one. By the way, Kira and Science Melinda from Australia, there is no such thing as vegan salami or vegan bacon. There's no such thing.
Thank you.
There is no such thing. All right? No such thing. You can't hide cow food in fake bacon or fake salami. You can't. All right.
You know, this is a hot topic for me right now, and I can usually be pretty positive about any food or people's diet, but I won't name the restaurant I work for, but we have a burger that's a veggie burger, and you cook it from frozen, which is fine, but when this thing's thawing on the grill cooking, it looks exactly like one of those cat food cans that you just go, and then the whole thing comes out. I know, and I'm so gross. I'm so grossed out every time I cook this. I would rather wrestle an octopus or a squid live and serve it than cook this veggie burger.
Okay, guys, hold on one second. Thank you to G West, Marty, Ange, Kira, Space Cow, Pascal, Bob, Abe, and Simon for the super chats. Oh, you guys are killing me here. Let's just get this shit rolling.
I'll be right back.
We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate hurting your listening ears. Oh, if you could have heard the conversation during the break. Hey, I want to remind you that you can check out all of our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Check out all our brand new swag as well. And you can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight. Triangles, Aliens, and the Messages. The brand new book by Grant Cameron and Nicole Sakach can be found on Amazon. Now, you got to go buy this one because this is the first time Nicole has her name on a book, and she will autograph it for you. She will autograph it for you for sure. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. We really do appreciate it. And let's start off with the message. What is the message that we are hearing, Grant?
Well, maybe Nicole can talk about what's in the book. I don't remember what was in the book where you put messages. The message to me is because the triangles really didn't give any messages. That's the thing about the weird thing about the triangle. They never landed. They really didn't get any messages, and nobody got abducted. So that would tend to indicate something weird different is going on. The message to me, the beings, this is my personal opinion. I believe it's the oneness message. That is the number one message they want. Everything is one. Everything's connected. The free survey showed 54% of all experiencers claimed they were talked to about oneness and love. So it goes to the near-death experience message, the psychedelic message, all the contact modalities. When you get down into them, they get into this thing about the fact that it's all one thing, and we're separating, we're parsing. And if you don't stop the parsing and me versus you, this country versus that country, this state versus that state, this color versus that color, this political party versus the other political party, you're just going to wipe yourself out. It just gets more divided, more fights. That we are all one. It's the idea that everything is divinity, and you cannot separate it from. If you try to separate something from divinity, whatever you put into the shadows will draw you into the shadows with it. That everything is divine, everything's part of the divine, everything's connected, and we're all playing these roles. And whatever you damn, whoever you damn damns you back. And so this is the message. And the other message that people will commonly report is this idea about the nuclear weapons, the environment and the nuclear weapons, that we're messing up the world. And so you have two different versions. So you have the experiencers seem to show this thing with the end of the world, or experiencers will talk about Ron Johnson talking about his job was to fly people off the planet, or people say they were told to do something. And what are you doing? I don't know. They told me when the time is right, I'll know what to do. And they're directing people and stuff like that. This idea that there's going to be this great cataclysm, and these beings are what's going to happen, and people are going to be taken off the planet like Neil Young after the gold rush. The silver seeds will come and take the chosen off the planet. But then the channelers say it's an awakening thing. It's whatever you built in fear is we're going to overturn the rock, and the little wigglies are going to come out, and we have to redo everything that we built in fear. So there's these two different versions of things, but we are at a transition. Oneness and this whole thing about the environment and nuclear weapons are the main messages that I think. The one in the book, I know the message was the thing about the triangle, that the triangle is a very important symbol in the universe. And that's why they use so many triangles on people's wrists and crafts and all this kind of stuff. The triangle is a very important symbol.
All right, for you, Nicole, tell us about the message. Your microphone's on mute. We're waiting for Nicole to unmute herself here.
I'm nodding. I just dittoed everything Grant said, but no, he took my thunder with the last one. I was going to say, I think the overall encompassing message was this, the triangle, the symbolism behind it, and that inner journey that it can take you on. As soon as you start learning about this, boom, next thing you know, you're learning about spirituality, maybe on a personal level. And I think the other message is what we refer to often is all of these triangle encounters seemed to make all of our experiencers go, wow. And it either set them on this path or at least had them circling the rabbit hole until they found more of their kind. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be a triangle that gives you your wow experience. But like Grant said, once you start this journey, once you have your wow, then that's when you realize the message from the intelligence is a lesson, you know, and it's a personal journey lesson. You know, you're taken inside yourself to explore what's out there in our reality. And I think that's the best message. Now, the common theme of messages, oneness, like Grant said, it's no nukes, but it's even, I think, broader than nukes now at this point. It's an entire environmental movement. It's take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet, that sort of message. Unity, oneness. Oneness doesn't mean we all have to get along. Like, that's the interesting thing about unity, like, and oneness. Like, there can be differences in oneness. So,
but do you get back to this thing where I say, when you close your eyes in death, you suddenly realize, oh my God, it was a big play, and we all were part of it, and Nicole was part of it, and we planned this whole thing, and you realize that everybody is part of the play. There's nobody outside of the play. We are all part of this thing. And that's where the important stuff, where you get into near-death experiences and the Michael Newton work and all these kind of things, where you start to realize the world is so much more complex than what we think it is. We always wanted it down as sort of a random, meaningless universe, and we're biological robots in it. And the more you look at the UFO phenomena and near-death experiences and all these contact modalities, you realize it is this super, super complex world that is patterned. It's life. It's almost like the idea where people have this idea, oh, it's just everything's just happening by accident and stuff. And I say, you have 330 billion cells that die in your body every day, 200 different cells. And each of those cells is 200 trillion atoms. And within a couple of hours, the 330 billion cells will be replaced by these cells that all put all these atoms together, trillion atoms in the right three-dimensional spot, and the 3 billion base pair DNA and stuff. And everybody says, oh, it's just happening by accident. Well, baloney. Then the UFO thing shows me that it's much, much more complex, and these messages, and that they're putting the messages. So you see the Ariel School, if you remember the Ariel School story, and we talked to Preston Dennett. We did the interview with Preston Dennett, that there's like, 100 cases of these school things where they drop in on these schools. But the Ariel School, when Emily Trim was from Hamilton, Canada, she was one of the ones, and she was getting these rapid image cycling things that I've actually got another couple of cases where the beings are using these rapid images. They're putting them in front of people at very high speed on a screen and stuff. And it sort of blocks the left brain, and you get this thing comes through. She said the
movie trick
getting word technology. That these technological images were coming into her head at this very high speed, like 100 images a second. And then at the very end, there was this flash, and she said, that doesn't mean the world's going to end, but they said, you have technology and you could do better. And the girl beside her that was on the logs that was running with this being in front of them, and this stuff was coming out of the being's eyes, these messages, and that she was getting the environmental thing. But you see that over and over again. 39% of all the experiencers, no matter what you say about the free survey, 39% of all experiencers, when you talk to them, you say, hey, did you see the screen on board the ship? And they go, yeah, I saw the screen. So what did they make you watch? And they'll talk about the environmental message, the flood, the giant wave, the nuclear weapon thing. And people are sort of being forced to watch this as if they're trying to turn this thing around or move us in a different direction.
One thing I haven't asked, though, or I haven't explored, though, is because we just talked about how the beings change and craft has evolved. The messages have essentially stayed the same.
Yeah. Yeah, the nuclear one for sure. And I don't know if you heard my series. I did a podcast series on nuclear weapons, and I look at the 6-Day War. I look at the Yom Kippur War and the UFO sightings and the connection to nuclear weapons, and my sighting that happened a couple of weeks after the end of the Vietnam War. And Travis Walton was taken in the middle of these UFOs inside the nuclear weapon storage areas at the SAC bases and stuff like that. And you start to see this nuclear weapon thing is a key message that even in the 1950s, I remember Walt Andrews, who was the head of MUFON, in 1978 in Dayton, Ohio, told me the story that Wilbur Smith, who ran the Canadian government program, had told him the message from AFA, which was the alien that they were going to land the base, where I just put on Facebook these letters from Paul Hellyer talking about the landing base that they opened in 1954. And it was AFA they were going to land at this base. It was Wilbur Smith. And AFA was also the one that Arthur Lundahl and these CIA people channeled in 1959 at the National Photographic Interpretation Center. And so you get this, the message that AFA, according to Walt Andrews, said, Smith had told him the story. He said AFA told them, the only time we'll ever step in, it's non-intervention. The only time we'll ever step in is if there's a nuclear exchange to save the Earth. Other than that, we will allow the human race to stew in its own juices. So the nuclear message, even the Adamski thing, when Adamski, think about contactees, Adamski, everybody writes Adamski off, but people fail to realize that Adamski appeared a couple of days after the detonation of the hydrogen bomb, which was different than the atomic bomb because you couldn't destroy the world with the atomic bomb. But when you developed the hydrogen bomb, then you had the power to destroy the world. And that's when the contactees, nobody in the contact world saw anything before 1952. There was really no contacts between 47 and 52. As soon as they detonated the hydrogen bomb, suddenly all these contactees are out there telling us stuff, the nuclear weapons, and these people are going for rides on flying saucers. And I think there's a connection. I think the nuclear weapon is a big thing that they are very concerned about. And that's not so much that, it's the idea of oneness. That we think that it's only going to affect this little area. And what they're saying is it affects the entire universe. And that's why they came in 1947 in great numbers, is because it's like a bell. When you ring one corner of the bell, the whole bell rings. And they knew what we'd done. And that's why they came in and said, the kids have got the matches, and started indirectly trying to influence. And the way I believe they influence us is through reincarnation, that we are the beings, we make an agreement and we come in at this time to try to help, that we've all have a purpose here, and that's why we're here.
Yep.
Now, are these messages coming through downloads or actual communication during abduction?
Well, all experiencers are showing, like the 39% of people with the screens, they'll describe the screen. Stan Sparks is the first to describe it, where he would take all these people, and he had hundreds of people sitting in front of these screens. He said, "Oh, great, I got a job. They gave me a job," and he's all excited. And they're all watching these screens with these environmental images. So yeah, the experiencers are getting them. I mean, I've gotten them myself. People in all sorts of contact modalities, channeling. Desta has got. In fact, I'm doing a book now called the 10 things that they gave us that might save the world. Things that came in recently that I think may have been given us to try to stop the Titanic from hitting the iceberg. But Desta is so far along in terms of contact with whatever the intelligence is. She's people don't know. She never talks about it. And even I only have the odd conversation with her. But when I hear what she's doing and the who she's talking to and what they're telling her, I'm definitely going to do a book. I'm going to get her, we'll change her name or whatever. But this is whole idea that the world is much more complex than you think it is. And it's coming through contactees, it's coming through near-death experience people. All these people are to get in the field, all the materials in the field, and people find various ways to get in the field and get the message. But it's all, I think, the same sort of messages, that it's all divine. It's all one thing. There's only, the idea is only one electron. You're a participatory universe. You're part of what you're seeing. These are the kind of messages, but it's coming through all different modalities. But the contactees are big. A lot of the experiencers on board ships will tell you about the screen. They'll tell you about the messages that they're being given.
Dave Grant brought up Adamski, and that's when the experiencer bashing started. So with each wave of a step forward in this community, and we all give ourselves a notch in the win category, then it's like almost like clockwork. Then you can expect some form of experiencer getting attacked or backlash or called crazy or something. So
and there's an important part to that, is that the experience, the intelligence may actually be sabotaging its own people. I have that idea that they don't give you the whole thing. They could land on the White House lawn and tell us what's going on, but they're not. So they sort of sabotage their own sort of witnesses to give this plausible deniability. And I think that's part of what they're doing, because when you get the Adamski thing, we wrote them off, and then we went to the Greys. Then we're writing them off. But I think all the people are having clear experiences because, as I said, like 1895, they're saying they're from Mars. We now don't believe it, but in 1995, they believed they're from Mars. In 1950s, they're saying we're from Venus, we're from Mars, we're from the moon. I don't think all these people are lying. I think they were actually being told this, and that's the whole thing. They're talking to you at whatever level you're at. It's like the thing with Barbra Streisand's stepson. Wherever you're at, they'll talk to you. So 100 years from now, because if they came in 1895 and started talking about quantum physics and the simulated universe or whatever, the people in 1895 are going, what? Oh, what are you talking about? They have to talk to you at your level.
That's why maybe one of the underlying messages is inspiration. Like the message is in what it inspires. Like it's almost like you said, it's timelessness. It's what will happen or has happened or everything is happening right now. We're the same electron. So it's almost like it's pushing that envelope for us to, to manifest our own destiny. You know, it's like we get a glimpse of what the self-created universe is about to unleash. And that's maybe why it gives the fail-safe. Like you said, it's almost like the aliens set experiencers up somehow. You know, maybe that's that little gifting theory. Like we suppose, like each country, each superpower was gifted these crafts. So if they use it against each other, they're never going to get anywhere with the technology. Well, maybe that's the gift of the experience too. Like if you don't use it to like further the oneness, the good agenda, that the message, that the lesson that they're trying to teach, maybe they cut you off at the knees.
Yeah. Or we're part of this idea that we came in, because 37% of all 37% of all experiencers have had a near-death experience, and most of them have had two. So the question is, if you're considering these random events, why is this person happen to be an experiencer taken aboard a ship, and he also happens to have a near-death experience? Well, maybe it's not random. Maybe we planned all this and we came in. And the latest one I heard was, because I wrote a whole book called Inspired, where I look at all these things about the trauma. There's always a trauma event that opens up somebody to like Chris Bledsoe. He was very, very sick when this happened. He was, near death. He had shut his business down. You have these traumas. The latest one I heard was Tesla. The whole thing started when his brother got killed in a horse accident. He watched his brother get killed in a horse accident. And that's when he became having these visions and stuff like that. And that's where you see this thing where we trigger it in ourselves. We come in and we are part of the whole thing, that we come in, and then we have these events which we think are bad events, near-death experiences, which open us up, get us into the filter, and then we start putting this material out. That's not random either. The near-death experiences I don't think are random. The experiencer thing aren't random. Even Chris Bledsoe, they actually asked me, they just did the experience with him with the transcript, and I had the transcript. And they said, well, how did you have it? I said, well, Chris gave it to me, I guess. And they said to Chris, they said, when did you first meet them? And Chris said they have been with me since before I was born. And when you look at that, when it's multiple lives, everything changes. Everything changes.
Yeah. And well, I think that's a journey that a lot of experiencers go on. It's like they reach that point where they realize if it hasn't been happening to them from birth, it's pre-birth. And that's where I think the lingo throws people off too, where you say like a pre-birth, like contract thing, like that makes it sound so final, but it's also like you're making that decision right now for yourself in the future that's already happening in the past.
Yeah. And the important thing to remember is, if you've studied the Michael Newton, where most of this stuff comes from, and some of the other people who have been doing it recently, it's not that you're told to do this. You and I plan it. We plan what we're going to come into the world to do, and we make agreements with each other. We're the ones. It's not we're being forced to do this. It's all a play, and we are part of the play. And we come in here just the same as the beings come in here, and you play the aliens, and next time I'll play the aliens. And I was the alien last time, and I'm going to abduct you. And that's what you got to realize. If it is what Newton said, and that was 7,000 people that they regressed. If that is true, that this is like a simulated universe, and it's all arranged. And every life we plan our life, and then we have free will to pull out of contracts or whatever. But we are the masters of our own destiny. We can't blame Hillary Clinton and Putin and the Chinese and all this kind of stuff. We are the ones that are dealing the cards of the deck.
Right. That's why it starts with, taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
Taking care of the earth. Like,
let's sneak in a question here from Jonathan, because earlier on, Grant, you said the Greys didn't show up until 1961.
Yeah.
He's wondering then, what were the bodies in 47 in Roswell?
I asked Wilbur Smith, his son, James Smith was his oldest son. Wilbur Smith, there was a story going around with what they called the inner circle. There was 5 inner circle people that he had worked with. One was from the Defense Department, one from the Navy, one from the Air Force and stuff. And I asked his son, I said, is it true that you asked your father before he died about the bodies in the craft? He said, yes, I did. He said, when my father, he had lower bowel cancer, he knew he was dying. And he said, when they knew there's nothing more they could do him, he said, yes, there was. I said, were they Greys? He said, no, my father did not describe them as Greys. He described them as little people looking like us. Wilbur Smith said they could pass on the street. I would know who they are, but you would not. So that was the thing where, and people have switched. Like I brought up the thing about the Greys in 1954. Everybody wants to get Eisenhower with the Greys at Edwards Air Force Base. I said, this makes absolutely no sense. This story, we made a contract with the Greys to abduct people in exchange for technology. Number one, the Greys can abduct, if they're abducting people, they can do any abduction they want. You're not going to stop them. You don't need a treaty. And if they break the treaty, what are you going to do? Take them to court? And secondly, why would the Greys give you advanced technology, which you're going to turn around and try to shoot them down? We've made all these nonsensical stories. We've sort of backtracked this stuff. But I maintain that there was a crash in 47. There were bodies. Even Wilbur Smith. We had the thing with Kit Green going to Eric Walker at Penn State, and about the bodies getting up and walking away. And that's when he said, maybe they got up and walked away. Maybe they didn't. This is none of your business. This is just curiosity. Why should we change the rules to satisfy your curiosity? But he had this idea. It was the same idea that they may have actually been like human type beings. We won't know until we actually see the gray beings, but I think that it's part of what we're seeing. The same with the reptilians and the mantids. I guarantee you that was not being described in 1975. There was no mantids. There was no reptilians. There was not even abduction. Travis Walton was sort of one of the first abductions. We didn't even know. Like people asked me about the triangle thing. Do you think you were abducted? I said, well, maybe, because nobody knew anything about missing time. Nobody knew anything about this. You got to realize this stuff didn't come up till the 1980s, that it was a totally different world and different things were happening.
it was. I don't know. And then Grant, you pointed out earlier, though, like even the accounts of the Greys from different experiencers vary so much. And I think one thing that hits home for me as being so different with like Betty and Barney Hill's case is everybody has like this idea. I guess it's Whitley Strieber's Grey with the almond black eyes, totally blacked out. Well, Betty and Barney Hills actually had whites and a pupil. And I don't think they really described them as these huge eyeballs. They were more, like smaller with, whites. And that's what blew me away. It was like,
and the other thing was that Betty and Barney Hills aliens had hats on. And I go, take a look. Something else is going on. What is they got a baseball team on Zeta Reticuli? Like, why are they wearing hats? You see these weird things. Like they don't have clothes. They don't have belly buttons. They don't have sex organs. They don't have mouths. They don't have ears. All this kind of stuff. And you start saying, what are we really looking at? We just sort of immediately assume that this is what's going on, and it may not be what's going on.
Grant Cameron, Nicole Sakach. I think I'm here somewhere. I don't know. We got it for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio, heading into hour 3. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, Dave 101 continues. Should Louis Elizondo write a book? We'll be back right after this.
I think everybody should write a book.
Exactly.
Yep.
Especially the experiencers, because that they all, when I asked them, I say, did like Sherry Wild, did they force you to write it? She said, yeah, because she had the thing where she was looking at the word program and she never used the word program, and it was on page 3.5. And she was really upset about her experience. She actually tried to commit suicide a couple times. And she said, she looked at this 3.5 pages of writing. And she goes, oh no, we're not going there. No way, we're going there. And then she wrote the book, and then her family takes the restraining order to stop her from publishing the book. And she fights through on this thing. And they all become messiahs. As soon as they write it down, then I guess your self-image, and you're not really afraid to talk about it anymore. Once you get an experience, you're talking about it, then suddenly they become like the messiah, and they want to tell everybody about it.
Well, and that's what I think the effect of Anjali going from, her one podcast interview to being in DC, it's like we saw that springboard of confidence, and I think she has a close circle around her. So, some of us, go big or go home. That's what I think she did. She took it. So
maybe you should get an interview with her. We'll interview her and we'll press her on the facts and see
we'll see. Maybe that'll be our first interview of 2022.
Nicole, I will say this. I sent her a message.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't heard back, but if she comes on, you can come with me.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, I'm that guy.
It'll be interesting.
She's not doing interviews. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know if she is.
She's being very picky. I mean, she hasn't, outside of Jimmy, she hasn't done a big show.
Oh, yeah.
She's done a couple of small ones. She pulled out of another one. Chris Holm with a great comment here. If aliens push the hippie message of no nukes, do they also push the hippie message of get high, drop out? That was big at the time. Curious.
Well, yeah, they do, because you take a look at the whole DMT thing. That's where I say you got to really take a look at DMT. That 50% of the people that do the DMT in Strassman's survey saw beings, and he kept it secret for many years. He was floored. He would say to them, "Do you think you've been abducted?" And they go, "No, I wasn't abducted. I don't think so." And he was horrified by this whole thing. And that's why I heard one of the stories was he stopped the DMT research at New Mexico University because he was so horrified by these beings that were showing up. And when you take a look, I think a quarter of them have the being. Even one gets raped by a reptilian. Some guy gets raped by a reptilian. You get the same story, and you got to say, what's going on here?
Uh-huh. Oh, I agree. I'll take some audience questions next.
Ooh. Even with Dr. Persinger's work with the God helmet, just discovering, that lobe where the activity is. And like he just simply put it, if you're ultra Christian, you're going to experience God, or Jesus. If you're a Buddhist, you might see Buddha or your enlightened self, and he just laid it out there like that. But I've heard him like sidebar joke. It's like, if you believe, I want to say the Smurfs, it's like somebody manifested Papa Smurf, like, something like that. So, I mean, that sort of lobe and creativity, which ties into our 3 talk and triangles. The left side is often in the trifecta connected to divinity. So is it the voice of God speaking to you? Because we know the right hand of God is Jesus, right? So there's lore that the left side is like the word of God, which is Gabriel, or represented as an angel. But it could just be like that link to the divinity, because we all have the trifecta within us.
Yeah. Well, right? I think once you break clear, it's like a radio. You just change the frequency, whether you're using trauma or psychedelics, and you tune in.
You're either the actor, the director, or what?
Or all the above.
Right. Or the screenwriter.
Yeah. And that's where I think people are going to be kind of surprised, where they're going to realize like it was all, or my father, I always tell a story. My father, 2 days before he died, his father came to see him. Mm-hmm. And he died in 1956. So I say, why did my grandfather come to my father as his grandfather, or as my grandfather? Because if he came as any of his other 1,000 lives, my father wouldn't have known who he was, and it wouldn't have meant anything. So you can appear as whatever you want to appear as. And it's all about messaging. It's all about trying to get something across. And ghosts can do it, and beings can do it. We think that we're stuck in this physical world, and everything is the way it is. We think we're actually the player on the stage. We're actually the actor, and we start every sentence with I and me, and we think things are physical and we own them. Even the idea of the owning, where the Nimitz thing, where they're in our airspace. Well, no. nobody owns the airspace. And if anybody owns it, it's like the beings in Great Britain. We were here first. You're the visitor. It's our airspace.
Right.
Anybody owns it.
So, Grant, what would you say out of all the lessons
We only
that
got
you've encountered?
25 seconds, Nick. I'm going to get you to hold off.
We'll sidebar with that later.
Yeah, sidebar with it later if you don't mind. Big thank you to Chris, Patrick, Spooky, G West, Marty, Ozzy Ange, Kira, Space Cow, Pascal, Bob, Abe, and Simon for the super chats. Thank you to all the veterans out there who have tuned us in tonight. We really do appreciate it. And here we go, everyone, with hour number 3.
3.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
We're kicking off third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Thank you to everyone tuning us in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Welkin. Welkin is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we introduced Nicole Sakach and Grant Cameron. They have a brand new book out, can be found on Amazon, called Triangles, Aliens, and Messages. Yes, it's a beautiful book. We highly suggest that you guys get it for your UFO library. And we're going to take some audience questions, Grant and Nicole. Right off the bat, Apollo 11 is asking, are UFOs related events increasing in numbers over the years?
Nicole's taking off. Okay, I'll tell you what I say. I remember the Canadians always used to do a survey. Yeah, the Canadians always used to do a survey, and they say, "Oh, there's like double the sightings there was last year." And in this time, and there was all these sightings in Saskatchewan or something. It's like, how many investigators are there that are filing the cases? So if you got twice the investigators, you're going to have twice the cases. I don't think that really matters. I think it's more important to look at the particular cases and what people are being told. Because sightings are just, again, it's like we're going to get into this thing with sightings that we're going to end up gathering 100,000 really good UFO sightings, and we're never going to get past the fact, yeah, UFOs exist. Let's get by that, get into grade 2 and figure out what's going on. That I don't think sightings really are all that significant to me. They prove that something's going on, but we got to get past that.
To chime in on that, I will say, I'm channeling Cheryl Costa right now.
There you go.
Statistically, I think, yes, we've seen an increase in reporting. So the numbers rise, and especially like going back to her work in the pink book that's just come out, like especially through COVID, when she's crunched the statistics, like we have had an increase. But I'm going to go with my UFO boss and say it's still just sightings. Like there's those of us in the community. I mean, yes, report them. It's good. We want the data. We need it on the books. People like Linda and her wife are doing wonderful work with the data, but we're beyond that. We want, it's the sighting, no big deal. I think the same amount of sightings have been happening throughout time. As long as humans have been humans, I think we've been having experiences with the intelligence. So I think that has remained the same. I think people disregard it or don't even know what they're dealing with 90% of the time.
And the other problem with it is when you talk about sightings in certain places, you're making it look like an outside event, that there is an outside event happening outside of us. And it has to do with what state it's in. Well, what's there attracting it to that state or whatever. And I think the more important thing is you look at someone like Chris Bledsoe, where this guy is like an antenna, and you figure out, why is Chris Bledsoe saying this? I think it's connected to the person and not so much to a physical place where there's always going to be this component. We want to change it as if it's some sort of event. And if we can figure out why there's so many in Utah, we're going to figure out what UFOs and why they're here. I don't think that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's get to another question, because we've had a few people ask about the Greada Treaty, which allegedly Eisenhower met with extraterrestrials, trading humans for technology. And Grant, you're not a believer in this.
Oh, absolutely. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It was like, and I actually looked at the plane. I mean, in terms of the plane, because I went to the Eisenhower Library twice, and we knew what the plane was. The plane did not leave Palm Springs, California, and Bill Moore was there looking at this stuff as well. It just doesn't make any sense that the Greys, whatever they are, can do whatever they want. I mean, what do you do if the Greys break the treaty? I mean, what are you going to take them to court? It's a crazy made up story as far as I'm concerned. It just doesn't make any sense.
How about you, Nicole?
It's one of those where it's so embedded in ufology lore. Like, okay, I first heard about this anthology in the 90s, late 90s, when I dove into this. And at first you're just like, what? This fits with what you think you know about ufology. And then once you dive in further, like Grant said, just that it doesn't make sense. Like,
and the other thing I'll point out is that if you look at the literature, when this thing actually happened, the original story broke about 2 weeks later from a UFO group in California. And they said they were etheric beings that met with Eisenhower. And the story that was going around in the early days, what I heard was that they had levitated stuff across the table, and they had told Eisenhower to stop the nuclear weapons. And Eisenhower said, no, we've got to cover this thing up. People cannot know this kind of stuff, that these people have this kind of power. I say, if anything did happen, if there wasn't a meeting between the Greys, you look about 7 days after that event, February the 20th, 1954, you look at March the 1st, which was actually February the 28th in the United States. You look at the Pacific, at the Marshall Islands, and you look at the first test of the what's the test called? Castle Bravo, the first Castle Bravo test. It was the biggest nuclear disaster in the history of the world. It was 5 megatons. It was supposed to be 5. It was 15 megatons. It was a dirty bomb because it was on the ground. It contaminated 3 islands. It contaminated a Japanese fishing trawler. And they still protest every year about this fishing trawler, all the people that were killed on this fishing trawler. It was a massive nuclear disaster in the Pacific. That happened a couple of days after that. So it may have been, we want you to stop the nuclear test, because they knew what was going to happen in the Pacific, and Eisenhower said no. That's what I believe. If anything happened, it had to do with that nuclear test.
Right. And
all right, go ahead, Nicole. Sorry.
I often look outside of ufology and what's going on at the time in history when you're talking about time frames like this. So also, you got to kind of look at Eisenhower. I mean, we're just off World War II fighting Nazi oppression, and we just liberated millions of Jews. And I mean, we are king of the world right now. So you think Ike's going to turn around and not use these massive weapons if somebody's like, we're going to take your people? I just don't see that. Like, a military perspective, you're not going to like hand over your citizens to anybody. Like, I don't know, especially when you think it's something we can fight, like physical. And that's what doesn't make sense either.
And the other thing you got to realize is this whole thing about the abduction. What's actually going on? There's an abduction event, but you take a look at the Wilson leak document. It said no abductions. Kate Green says no abductions ever. Edgar Mitchell says no abductions. You look at the DMT and you see these people being abducted inside DMT experiments. Is there actually abductions? This is what I'm saying. When you get down to it, it's way more complex a story than people think it is. People want to just make it very simple. They're raping women. These Greys are here, and we just make up these sort of like QAnon stories that are,
But like, where were the clauses of who they could take? I mean, okay, but you can only take our homeless people, or I mean, who, what's the conditions of the exchange and where's the technology we got? Like, I don't know. I just, no, it's something's always rubbed me wrong about that. And
well, let's get to another question here from our audience. YJ from Kelowna, British Columbia, is asking, what is the forecast for alien disclosure over the next 12 months?
Again, the question is, what do you mean by disclosure? I think they've disclosed. And that's why I brought up with we take a look at Luizando, whether you're looking at Jim Semivan or all these people, UFOs exist. And in fact, I did this study, this presidential thing, and I actually said that when you take a look at what they've said, and you take a look at what was in the 67 Lynn and Johnson eyes only study, if it was like a cut and paste job. It was like they took the report out of the Johnson report and put it in the UAP report. It says, we did not, this is not our technology, and it's not the evil Russians, and it's not the evil Chinese. That's exactly what was in the 67 report. So we have this situation where now I've lost my train of thought. So go ahead, Nicole.
I will throw this out there that I think for the next 12 months, the chum in the water is going to be this progressive UAPTF report that's supposed to come in every 6 weeks, 8 weeks. What's the deadline?
90 days, I think. Each
90 days. So we get updated. How many are we going to get in a year then? And that's going to be, that's like chum in the water for Megalodon. Like, there you go.
But the bottom line is you have Lou Elizondo and all these people saying, we don't know what it is. And everybody goes, you know exactly what it is. Just quit lying to us. And it's like, well, maybe they're actually telling the truth. Maybe that was the final report to President Johnson. Yes, UFOs exist. Yes, there's metal crafts. Yes, this stuff is going on. Yes, this may be ET, but we really don't know what's going on. That's what they're saying. That may be disclosure. Yes, UFOs are here. We're being interacted, or what they call the core story, Kit Green. With the core story that he and Kit Green put off, and Jacques Vallée in the 1980s, 1983, in a Denny's restaurant, came up with the core story. There's a bunch of garbage floating around. What do we know for sure? We're being interacted by some phenomena. We've got a craft, and we cannot back engineer it. So even if you have a craft and you have bodies, that doesn't prove that they're ETs. It proves, yes, something's going on. And the more I look at it, the more I think they have not got a clue of what's going on. That's what Jim Semivan says. Whatever they are, there does not appear to be any there. This has to do with some sort of consciousness or something like that. These high-level guys are saying this. They're saying, we don't know. You may actually have disclosure right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's something that we're going to see as it pans out, because I still think for the majority of people out there, to simplify it, they still are waiting for whoever the president is to come up to the podium and say, my fellow Americans, we've made contact.
With ET, people want them. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. People want their version of the story. They want him to say, like Steve Bassett, he's got to say ET. Well, maybe it's not ET. Maybe that's why the president can't stand up and say it's ET, because they don't know for sure. Unless the body, they have a body. I know for a fact they have one body. Unless the body has a passport from Zeta Reticuli, how do you know where it's from? And that's the whole idea, is they can manifest whatever they want. The idea with Bob Bigelow said, oh, there's a crash in Roswell, but there was also a crash in South America, and there was one in Russia and China. I think they're seeding it. And then Tim Taylor from NASA says, he called it the gifting field. That's when I went to Jacques Vallée. I said, Jacques, this doesn't make any sense. They're crashing these things. They're dropping these pieces of metal. It looks more like to me like these are gifts that they're dropping these things. And Jacques Vallée said, yeah, I think I sort of came up with that idea. This is the whole idea. It may actually be they're dropping these things, that the bodies in Roswell, they can make them appear, and they're not even bodies. They can make whatever they want dropped in there, and they're not crashing. And it's way more complex than people think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Smith is asking, when was the first black triangle reported?
Grant's 1975. I ran 70s, but they weren't reported as triangles till later.
Yeah,
then,
see, mine, I don't remember any before. Like Marlar has some earlier from the 50s, but
yes.
it's like this odd case, whatever. But mine wasn't a black triangle. And the other thing about the triangles, which is really weird, that we showed, and Marlar showed the same thing, is when the triangle flies, it's flying with the back end forward. So it's the point is away from you, and that's what the one that was coming at me that came above the car, and it was either very big
Right.
or it was very low to the car. Because when I looked in the binoculars, it was the entire field of vision. It was that big. Above the car, sitting right above the car, but it was the back end that was coming, so it was flying backwards. And everybody describes this thing backwards.
You're meaning the flat end, like the flat.
So it was like the
not
triangle. The point of the triangle was away from you. It was coming
Right.
with the flat end towards you. And people always describe this, which doesn't make any sense. Which is almost like a clue where they're saying to you, it's like Betty Barty Hill with the hats on. It's like, take a closer look. What is this really? You think it's a triangle. Well, why is it flying backwards? And when you start looking at that, you go, yeah, why is it so big? Why is it flying backwards? Maybe it's not a triangle. Maybe it's not what we think it is. We immediately jump on some conclusion and run with it. But the black triangles, I guess the Belgian was sort of the first where the black triangles started to appear.
All right.
We didn't get to cover a big mass sighting. I think our person who was supposed to come and talk to us couldn't make the panel, but weren't we going to cover a big sighting in Wales?
Belgian. We were going to do the Belgian one.
Yeah.
But he misread the time. Yeah. So the Belgian was the big one with the military people and stuff like that. And that's where it really got going with the lights in the corner of the triangle and stuff like that. But the triangles are all different. You see the boomerangs and they're all different types, almost like the UFOs. When you start looking at UFO shapes, they're almost always, different variations and sizes and shapes and whatever. And you start to wonder what's really going on here.
Ooh. Let me answer Drew real quick, and then Grant can answer.
All right, Drew.
President Reagan actually had a sighting. Okay, now Grant.
let me ask the question first for our radio audience. Drew is asking, Grant, how much did Ronald Reagan actually know about the UFO phenomena?
Well, the story that was originally told was Steve Allen, who was a comedian in Hollywood, told this story about Reagan coming to a cocktail party in Los Angeles. And Lucille Ball wrote it in her autobiography about Reagan coming in with Nancy, and he was all excited. He was an hour late coming in from Sacramento. And Lucille Ball said, I always wondered whether people would have voted for Reagan if they'd known about this UFO sighting. But then the story came out just a couple of years ago that Lucille Ball had told Shirley MacLaine that it wasn't just a sighting. It was an actual landing. He had the one with the plane where they chased with the plane. And then the second one was on the ground along the coast highway. And according to what Lucille Ball told Shirley MacLaine, there was actual being came out and Reagan interacted with the being and the being told him to run for president. So when Shirley MacLaine that came out, it was in a British newspaper. I went to Shirley MacLaine's webmaster and I said, is Shirley being misquoted or did Lucille Ball actually tell her that? And then I came back and said, no, she's not being misquoted.
No kidding. No kidding. All right, Excalibur. We got 5 minutes here. I want to get to a couple more questions. What is Grant's best guess as to whom is flying the triangles, humans or aliens?
They're etheric beings playing aliens or humans. They're definitely. I do not believe it's the government. I mean, it's the old idea. We lost against a bunch of Stone Age tribe people in Afghanistan. Anybody that thinks that we've got this thing under control, we absolutely do not. I do not believe we have this super high technology and we're flying all this stuff around. I just don't believe that's going on. I believe what Elizondo and all these people say is we're interacting with this phenomena and we really don't know what it is. Or as Jim Semivan was asked by John Alexander, so who's running the show? And he said, they are. They're running the show. We don't have any of this technology. So it may be etheric beings, but again, it may just be projections. It's all a dream. That's what Nancy Tremaine was told. It's all a big play for the creator. It's all a dream. It's not, the world is not as physical as we think it is. So it may be beings. It may be just me projecting it. I'm part of what happened to me. I don't think my sightings were random. And I can't get it's a long story, but my sightings were definitely, looking back, were not random events. They were intended for me to get out there and get dragged down into the rabbit hole. There's no other way to explain what happened to me.
All right, let's get to another question here from our audience. And where are we here? This one's from Jim. So we got about 4 minutes. What do the aliens want from us? concerning instructions on living?
I mentioned it already. It's the oneness message. I will bet all my cards. It's the oneness message. Get it together. You're all one thing. Quit parsing it. Everything is connected. That is the number one message, I believe.
Nicole, what's your thoughts?
Ditto. It's all connected. I think it falls back to that. Take care of yourself. You know, if you want to say your body's a temple, you know, take care of your mental self, take care of your physical self, take care of the environment around you.
Yeah. As John Wheeler said, it's a participatory universe. You got to realize we are part of what we're observing. It's all connected.
All right. Ozzy Ange is asking, invisible helicopters, what do they have to do with triangles?
Again, you look at it and it's more complex. So there's a guy, Tony Bintz is a friend of mine. Long story with the feathers and stuff. A bizarre story happened. He came to see me in the United States, and he had these helicopters that would fly 50 feet over his head. One was a police helicopter. One was a military helicopter. One was a black helicopter, and they were like 50, 100 feet over his head. And I said, these are happening over London? He said, yeah. I said, this doesn't make any sense. What's going on? And then he showed me 2 photographs with UFOs in the helicopter photograph. So I put it on Facebook. I bet you a dozen cases. So what's the chances that you're going to get a helicopter with a UFO, a mysterious helicopter after a UFO experience with a UFO in it? And you start to wonder, is this actually a helicopter, or is this something they want us to think it's a helicopter? That's what I'm saying. The phenomena, I guarantee you, is going to get more and more complex. It's not what it appears to be. It's like 1492. It appeared that the world was flat. It appeared that the sun went around the earth. We were the center of the universe. It appeared that way. The wider your perspective is, the more you see, the more you realize that what you thought was going on is not going on. It's going to be 1,000 times more complex than what people think it is.
All right. Final question from our audience. From Space Cow, good Canadian kid. Will aliens have to have a COVID passport, Grant?
I'll let Nicole answer that one.
I decline to answer that one. I cannot speak on behalf of the aliens and whether or not they are offended by our massive virus.
Let me. You want controversy? So let me give the guy controversy. I call it the oneness virus. I say that I invented it. It's got to do with oneness. It's to tell you the virus is to say it's all connected. You don't think you're connected? This proves it. Just keep going. We're going to show you we're all connected. We are all part of the same system. And the sooner we learn that, the sooner we're going to save ourselves.
Nicole, you get the final word tonight. Where can people find your new book?
Amazon.com. Search for Grant Cameron and it'll come up.
And you'll sign books.
And we'll sign books, both of us. It's going to be work to get that golden first Grant and Nicole signature. Who's going to make that happen? I don't know.
I don't know. We got a nice picture of Grant Cameron on our website under the SOR fan club or the fan zone, where he is, holding up his Spaced Out Radio T-shirt and poster. And Nicole, your picture is going to be going up there pretty quick as well. So we really appreciate you guys. Grant Cameron, you are a hero and mentor of mine. I love you, man. Thank you for everything that you do for ufology. Nicole Sakach, well, you know what I think of you. You're number one. You are number one. And that's where we'll leave it right there. Coming up next, I'm getting into Elizondo. He's writing a new book. He's got a book deal, but apparently ufology doesn't want him to have a book deal. I'm telling you why he should when we come back on Spaced Out Radio. Dave 101 next. Fun times, everyone. We'll give you a few claps right there.
That's good, yeah.
Now, my answer to the Space Cow's question about the COVID passports, it all comes down to who's elected Monday, my friend. It all comes down to who's elected Monday.
No, it doesn't. It comes down to the thing will just keep going, and everybody's going to learn the lesson. It's all one thing. Doesn't matter. It's like whatever cards are dealt. PEI has no deaths. and the United States has 3,000 a day. It's going to be learning to play the cards you're being dealt.
Yes. All right, my friends.
Okay.
I will let you guys go so I can prepare for my all-important Dave 101.
Dave 101.
Dave
I
101.
think, yes, he should.
I think
And
he
he
should
should spill all his secrets. That's my opinion. And boss, I'll see you tomorrow at noon.
Okay. Beautiful.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you for being so wonderful.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everybody in the chat.
Okay. Have a
Good
good run.
There they go. Grant Cameron, Nicole Sakach. We love them around here. Now, Space Cow, don't you go doing something silly on the voting end. No orange or red or green or pastel blue or purple. Or dark blue. Oh, you already voted. I haven't voted yet. I have not voted. No, Fedora John is tomorrow night. That was a good show. That was a very good show. Yes, I will be voting Monday for the Canadian Prime Ministerial election. We're all Chad Smith, by the way. Americans, Canadians, Aussies, Brits. Hey, Brian. How you doing, buddy? Lori Rosenfield, how are you? Thank you for that wonderful super chat. Anya, welcome and thank you. Thank you, Chris and Patrick and Spooky and G West, Marty, Aussie Ange, and Vegan Kira, and Space Cow and Pascal and Bob and Abe and Simon and Theodore. Look at that. Nicole with a oneness equals Chad Smith. Look at that. I'm out of cough candies. Oh, no, there's one in there. Hold on before we knock everything over. By the way, I should show you this. I got this a couple days ago. Got a package in the mail from Dirty Fylth. My name is George. I am a land shark, and I live in the mountains. You are my best pal. Well, thank you. Here's George. Thank you, Dirty Fylth, for George. We got to find a home for him so that way he can be seen. I don't know. There we go. Appreciate that, Dirty Fylth. Lori, you can blame me for your lack of sleep. I don't mind. It's not the first time. Every vote counts, Kev. Every vote counts. And we don't vote into machines up here. We vote into on paper. And then there are 3 to 5 sworn in scrutineers who hand count the ballots and then report in on the ballots via computer. No, we do not have the electronic machines up here. Jonathan has seen fake helicopters. No way. Chinook's disappearing right in front of you. That's a big helicopter too, man. Wow. I haven't seen my bear in a while. I think he's kind of moved on to a different area. Yeah, we hope we get a good person into office too, rather than Mr. Corrupt again. Hi, Hi, gorgeous Lynn Sows. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's time once again for Dave 101.
It's time for Dave 101.
All right, and it's once again where I'm going to give my opinion on things. Why? Because, well, it's my show. I kind of have that ability to do so. So here we go. Lou Elizondo, the former head of the ATIP program, former popular guy with the To the Stars Academy, literally called the demigod of UFO Twitter. People literally will bow and pray to old Lou and his fantastic chin hair. Well, there's a big debate in the UFO field, if you haven't heard by now, that Mr. Elizondo has signed a book deal. Why is this even news? People should be excited for this. Yet, this news of Elizondo signing a book deal where there was actually a bidding war for his story between publishers is absolutely tearing apart parts of ufology. Why? You have the section that is there saying, good on you, Lou. I'm going to buy this book. This is going to be great. And then you have the other section of ufology saying, this is BS. This is garbage. He shouldn't be writing a book. He doesn't need to profit off of this. Well, let's see. Mr. Elizondo can write a book, and he should. Why? Because we need to hear his story. We need to learn about the man from his own words. So far on almost every podcast and radio show and television interview, he has this aura of a mystique to him. He says a lot without saying a lot, for the most part. We don't know the man. We don't know where he was born. We don't know a lot of questions about his military career, his background, how he truly got into UFOs. Does he really hate the To the Stars Academy and Tom DeLonge? Is that the reason why he quit? We need to find out. But here's the other side we forget about Lou. He is human. He has a longtime wife. He's got 2 children that are growing up. He's got mortgage. He's got bills, just like you and I. Internet costs money. Cable costs money. The NFL channel costs money, even though I don't think he's a sports fan, outside of lifting weights. Hydro costs money. Electricity costs money. Food costs money. Gas, insurance. He's got to pay it somehow. We do know that he is a government contractor. What we don't know is he probably lost a ton of money through this whole To the Stars Academy fiasco. How much, we don't know. But I'm sure if you were in his position as well, you'd want to write a book about your story as well, especially if companies are literally upbidding each other to try and get your story. Now, there's a lot of people in ufology that do not like Elizondo for a number of reasons. Number one, he's a government spook. Once a spook, always a spook. Can't trust the spook. How can you trust the spook to give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. Because his job for a number of years before UFOs became the topic du jour was to keep this all silent. And now he wants to play the good guy, the hero, wants to wear the UFO cape. Now, I've talked to Lou a few times, and I'm going to tell you right now, at first, I didn't care for the guy. I didn't want to trust the guy. Now, I think he's a good dude. I do. On a personal level. Do we know what his intentions truly are? No, we do not. Maybe a book will tell us. But there's this great divide in ufology that for some reason, you're not allowed to make money. You're not allowed to make money off your story because that means you've sold out. The biggest con excuse ever. Oh, that person sold out. This person sold out. Travis Walton sold out for the movie. Lou's selling out for a book. It's hogwash. Everybody's allowed to make money. Everybody's allowed to make money off of something they love. The worst part about it is some of his biggest critics are authors who make money off their books, YouTube podcasters who make money off of their channel and their live super chats. But Lou's not allowed to make money off his book. No, that's selling out. Now, there are some people also upset that Lou is holding on to some stories that are apparently going to blow our minds. Of course he is. That would say that he's been talking about doing a book for a long, long time. We need this book. Ufology needs this book because it may give us those little secrets, those little tidbits that we get, those little scraps that mice feed on after a dinner and a barbecue outside. We need those. We need those. Why? Because that's all we get. That's all ufology ever gets. And for people to criticize Lou for telling his story, whatever that story may be, it's ridiculous. I want to learn about the man. I want to learn about his childhood, his military career, how he got involved with the government and the alphabet agencies that led him to the Pentagon. I want to know if he'll come out as an experiencer. Imagine that. Imagine if Lou Elizondo comes out as an experiencer. For so long, we've heard Lou talk UAPs. We don't know where they're from, foreign adversaries, threat narratives. We've heard it all. But what happens if in that book we find out that Lou's got aliens? What happens if in that book he tells us a story of his own encounters, whether it happened during his time at ATIP or whether it happened on his personal time, maybe growing up or later on in life? How would that change the entire perception of Lou Elizondo? Think about that. I've already gone on record saying I believe that Elizondo is an experiencer. You can go back to our first interview about 25 minutes in with him when I asked him if he's seen extraterrestrials. Without saying it, in my opinion, he completely admits that he did and has. So the point that I'm getting at is he's allowed to make money. We are all allowed to make money. I have no problem with people making money, whether it's Grant Cameron and Nicole Sakach on their brand new book, whether it's Richard Dolan, whether it's certain podcasters and YouTubers making money off of talking on this subject. We're allowed. Money and profit are not dirty words, except when it comes to the paranormal umbrella. You're not allowed to charge if you're a paranormal investigator. Otherwise, that's taboo. You're not allowed to make money in ufology because you're pushing a narrative. You're ripping people off. You're lying to people to make the old Benjamin Franklin. I'm sorry, I don't know who's on our $100 bill in Canada. Unfortunately, the world revolves around money. And none of you would ever turn down your job if somebody came from a different company and said, I'll pay you $50,000 more a year, or $20,000, or even $10,000 more a year. Heck, maybe even $5,000 or $2,000. You're not turning it down. Why? Because we're all trying to get ahead in life. We're all trying to survive in this ugly, ugly time right now. And for people to say that Lou should not be able to write a book, it's incredulous and ridiculous. It really is. Absolutely, he should write a book. We need his story. We need his words. And if he lost money on the To the Stars Academy, because we still don't know whether he was an investor or not. Maybe some people do. I do not. But if he lost money on that, doesn't he deserve a chance to get his money back? Everybody deserves that. Back in 2017, when I had my breakdown, I lost a lot of money because I couldn't work. Wasn't there. All right? I lost a lot of money. I'm finally getting out of that hole. He's allowed to make money off his story. He's allowed to make money off of his name. So far as we know, to this point, he has done everything for free. Every conference, every interview, he has done for free. Even the television series, they did for free because that was a To the Stars Academy event. So if you look at it, he is given, whether you like him or not, a big piece of his last 3 years to ufology. Going on every podcast that he could since leaving the To the Stars Academy almost a year ago. Now, one of the first things Lou Elizondo told me, and this is where I gained a lot of respect for him, was when he found out that we had put in 15 different requests for interviews with the To the Stars Academy for Lou Elizondo to interview with us here on Spaced Out Radio, including one interview where they asked us for preloaded questions, which we declined. He was embarrassed. He apologized a couple of times for that because he wanted to do the interviews. But due to the silly rules that Tom DeLong's team put together on paper and on contract, he had no say in it. So before we continue to beat up and bash old Louie for his role in ufology, let's remember, he is human too. He is allowed to make money. He's allowed to take care of his family. He's allowed to put money away for retirement, even though he's got a pension from the government. He's allowed, just like you are, just like I am. Now, if you don't trust Lou as the voice of ufology, that's okay too. He's allowed to take criticism for his former career and hiding a lot in his former career from the public. Is he the UFO savior? To this date, we don't know. But right now, he's one of the most important people, whether you like him or not, in ufology today. And he's about to write probably a very popular book, and he's allowed to. That's your Dave 101. Oh, we're playing the wrong music there. Son of a gun. Let's go with this one. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR News Wire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes kind of a cool anniversary. So what's the anniversary? Well, on the night of September 19th and 20th of 1961, Betty and Barney Hill, returning from a honeymoon here in Canada, encountered a large UFO in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. The next thing they remembered was being 30 miles down the road with 2 hours elapsed that they could not account for. Both physical evidence and nightmares alarmed them. Later, they were hypnotically regressed and recovered memories of being on board a spacecraft and subjected to medical exams by non-human entities. This story swept America in the mid-1960s and remains the most famous abduction case in history. Now, the mystery happened almost 60 years ago, as we're coming up to the anniversary, but its relevance seems greater than ever. It remains the most famous abduction case. It was the first alien abduction claim in the United States. It was the first one reported case of missing time. It was the first use of hypnotic regression to recover abduction memories. It was the first public description of what we know as the Greys. It was also the first time a couple had claimed a simultaneous abduction. Startling and shocking when first reported, the Betty and Barney Hill case became the essential template for what followed in the entire field of alien abduction phenomena. When one claims abduction experience today, it is a reasonable question to ask if the person reporting such an event was influenced by drugs, alcohol, books, television, articles, UFO films, documentaries, YouTube, social media, because of the specifics that are known worldwide. When the Hills had it happen to them, however, there was nothing like that, of course. There was still black and white TV. Betty and Barney Hill had no reference point for which to make up a story about an abduction. It was the last thing on their minds. Back in 1961, most people still called the UFOs flying saucers. It was a big enough leap to think that something without wings might be buzzing about in our skies. The idea that the craft might have occupants not from here was more than most people could contemplate. Getting specific about what they look like and where they came from was far too improbable. Talking about having medical experiments, you got to be kidding me. But before the events of 61, they already got a lot of comic grief from their friends because, well, they were a biracial couple. And, of course, the Flintstones, Betty and Barney Hill. Betty and Barney Rubble. The Flintstones was the first animated series of primetime TV, and it debuted just 1 year before their abductions. On many levels, they were more innocent times. This was a couple that loved each other, stayed together their entire adult lives, until Barney passed away in the 80s. It's one of those stories, as we come up to the anniversary, we need to be able to see what's going on. You know what I'm surprised? I'm really surprised that there hasn't been a serious feature film made about it. I really am surprised by this. I don't know why, but it just absolutely makes me wonder. That's a story right there. You know what I'm saying? That's a story. All right. Moving on here. A man called the Vietnamese Tarzan, who spent 41 years in isolation in the jungle, has now died of cancer 8 years after returning to civilization. Ho Van Lang was 52 years old when he emerged from the forests of central Vietnam in 2013 with his aging father, Ho Van Than, who had retreated there in 1972 during the Vietnam War. All right. The two were in loincloths, made of tree bark, and had made a living off of the jungle plants, corn that they had planted, and animals they had hunted, with almost no contact with other inhabitants of Trabong district of Quang Ngai province. Well, the father died at the age of 86 in 2017, and now the legendary Vietnamese Tarzan is gone as well. All right, let's get to the thought of the day, shall we? Thought of the Day happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Day is as follows. Where are we here? Do. Oh, yeah. What was the best scene, in your opinion, of the Three Amigos? Three Amigos. How can you not say plethora? That's where I got my favorite word from. The word plethora. Now you all know. Dave always uses the word plethora. Why? Because of the Three Amigos. How could you not? It is a fantastic one. Let's see what else is on Twitter right now. Let's see. We got Mickle saying, I really love them singing the song Blue Shadows. That was beautiful in the desert. Remember that? Cynthia agrees, singing around the campfire. Anna, I haven't seen it in years, but I loved it. Hilarious movie. Andrew, oh, great. Real bullets. Remember that? Martin Short a shot. And the tequila shots in the bar. How good was that? El Guapo. How could you not love El Guapo? It is horrid black and yellow teeth. That is your thought of the day for today. We'll do it all again soon. Thank you to everyone listening in to Shirky Poo's News. Dave 101, Grant Cameron and Nicole Sakach coming in talking about their brand new book, Triangles, Aliens, and Messages. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight on YouTube, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Twitch, Spreaker, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. Pina coladas, Quest? I never thought you were a fruity alcohol beverage kind of guy. But those are damn good. Damn good. That was a good show, everyone. Very good show. All right, let's debate it in the chat room. The Dave 101. Let's do it. Let's do it. Should Lou be able to shop himself around for a book deal? Or should he not? Good night, Super Quest. We just did Dave 101 typical watch. Kevin, I'd give you a hug. Tomorrow night on the show, oh, you'll like this, guys. We got Dr. Paul Kingsbury, and we have the head of the SCU, Mr. Robert Powell, both of the SCU, talking the science behind UFOs. Hey, Nicole Sakach. Nicole Sakach, why don't you hit the link and come back on? Oh, thanks, Lazarus. I appreciate that. I would like a Chad Smith jigsaw puzzle. That's awesome. Nicole, get out of the chat room and come back in. Put your hair back down and come back in. Doesn't matter if you've already cleaned off one eye of eyeshadow. There's Chad Smith, everybody. There he is. The All-American, Chad Smith. Who cares if you're in your jammies? Come back in. Sonny Conway, what's happening? Oh, come on. You can get off the phone with UFO Joe. Come join us. Good point, Paula. Good point. I don't see a problem with Lou making money. I have a problem with people with faking crap on a television program for money. That's my thoughts in a nutshell. Good point there, Paula W. Am I trying to get aliens? Hey, Applesauce, how you doing? Thurston Howell the Third, good to see you. There's our music right there. I believe that's our music. That's our music. Well, look who showed up. Look who showed up. It's little Nikki Sackett right there. What's happening?
I have a new name. It's called the Sleepy Cook.
Oh, yes. Are we still allowed to call you just a cook now?
I am. I'm just a cook because that's all I do is cook. Cook. And I throw keys and a manager card at the bartender. And then I cook. That's how that goes down.
Okay, we're going to take some audience questions here. Jim, is it true that Elvis was on a landed flying saucer unpacking crates of Bigfoots in the woods? I hear that is true. That is a good question, Jim, to ask the Magic 8 Ball on Tuesday night, because the Magic 8 Ball knows all.
I can say that Elvis does pop up in a lot of people's orbs.
Really?
He's one of those people. Like Tesla's one, Churchill's one, Elvis is one. It's like there's like this gamut of like celebrities that like show up in like seances or onboard craft with people, or it's strange. Yeah.
How come it's never like Jimi Hendrix or Janis Joplin or
I don't know. I think, did Elvis see a craft? Was he part of that wave of, first rock and rollers that started talking about this?
I think so.
He might have been. Grant would know. Dang it. I'll look into this. I'll look into it. I liked Dave 101, by the way.
Thank you. We'll talk about that in a second. Excaliburful, do you think the book deal signals that Lou got what he wants with the new DoD UAP group and he's cashing out? If so, do you think that leaves us out to dry since DoD won't disclose? This is what I think. All right. I'll give you my straight up opinion. I say no. I think Lou is in for a couple of more years. From what I have heard from my sources, Lou does want to retire, which is why he moved his family back to Wyoming in a very small town in Wyoming. That's all I know. He wants to work on cars. He's had enough stress in his life. And I don't see Lou carrying the disclosure ball forward. I'm going to say Lou steps back in the next 2 to 3 years. That is my opinion. And knowing him, he probably got a 6-figure contract to write his book. I'm not saying I don't think he got $1 million, but I would be best to say that I believe that he probably got $100,000-$200,000 for that story. And good on him. I'm just surmising here. I could be completely wrong, so do not quote me on that. But a story like his, who knows? He may have hit $1 million. I don't know.
Let me chime this in, though. There have been other government people who have floated this book thing out too, who all of a sudden, have their book laid out, chapter by chapter. It's, ready to go. But then they get hit with that, like government wall about what they're okayed to put out and what's not. Just like case in point, Rick Doty's been working on a book for the last few years. And I think the last time I really checked into it, there was something like 270 something pages that he still wasn't allowed to use or put into a book. So I wonder if Lou will encounter something like that as well, to where there's something he wants to disclose or puts the envelope with, but there's still like a check in place where they're like, no, not yet.
I would totally agree with you that book is going to be heavily read through by lawyers.
Right. But I mean, this may be something where it's like he wants to talk about stuff, but he might not be able to talk about it for another 10 or 15 years too. So.
Yep. I would fully agree with you on that.
And then I want to ask if he's going to write it himself or if it's going to be ghostwritten or co-authored by somebody. And yeah.
I bet you it's ghostwritten. 100% it's going to be ghostwritten. Who the writer is, though, I don't know. If it's one of these big publishing companies, I don't see it being anybody in ufology. I mean, for all we know, it could be Leslie Keene because she's done that before. All right.
Right.
That would make sense. But I think Lou got some good money. We also have to remember, okay, that in his TTSA days, he was likely invested in that. I don't know. I haven't heard for certain on that, but the chances are, the way business works when you're starting something out, there's shares to be shared. And he probably lost a lot of money on those shares. Okay. And with that,
he might still have a stake in it.
what's that?
Why wouldn't he still have a stake in it just because he's not like on the board or whatever? Like, if he still has shares, they're still good, or a stake in it. Like, what has he lost? They're not bankrupt or anything yet.
He put $500,000 worth of his own money in there. I'm being hypothetical.
Right.
Okay. Let's say he put 500,000. He lost that 500,000. It's never coming back. Tom's never going to turn that into a major profit-making company.
Well, I don't know. Like, if the books and like the entertainment side like still do what they're, they think they could do and make money, like, I imagine people who are invested in it will, maybe get their investment back.
Could be.
Right. But, I mean, that's a good question to ask. I mean, just because he stepped down from being like the face of TTSA, does he still have an iron in the fire?
But right now, those shares are still worthless.
Right.
Enron back in the day is probably worth more than TTSA shares right now.
I don't know. I mean, they're not like publicly traded. So, I mean, like, isn't your share just what you like want to buy in? Like, I mean, I know they had like a minimum at some point and then it raised.
But they were giving everything for free. The CRATA with the U.S. Army was for $0. Okay. They probably didn't make anything off the television show in year one, maybe in year two. They would have had to cover the costs of that. Okay.
Right. Well, I mean, that's why you kind of have to treat them like a small business, and they've been affected by the vid the way every small business has been affected. But I mean, if you listen to what DeLong said with Simivan on Keating's interview, it was, full force ahead. Like, they're concentrating on entertainment right now because that foundation is already laid. It's not that their plans for anything have stopped. It's just on pause. Like, they go ahead with the entertainment stuff because they can still get that stuff out.
True.
Movies are still an industry that's not hit right now. Like, that sort of thing. Same with books. Like, so all their other endeavors are kind of just on pause, is the way I took it from the horse's mouth. But
there was $2.2 million raised in the first portion of the shareholders, okay, or the share stock.
Right. And what was that initial buy-in? It was really low.
It's like $200 a share.
And that's back when they really like emphasized that it was an academy.
Yeah. But the other thing too, though, is out of that first 2.2 million, DeLong got 750,000 of that.
Right.
That initial to clear up a lot of his other bad business debts, like a hot dog company, his Our Two Dogs company. And then,
I mean, that's like common though. That's common practice. Like, that's not nefarious. Like, that's how every business is ran.
Okay. So then, Tom heading in, according to statistics, made about $50 million with Blink 182.
Right.
Okay. And when you add that up, the fact that he probably had to give up half of whatever his money was worth, or whatever money he had in the bank due to his divorce after his wife caught him cheating. You know, we do know that he was selling his one vacation home for I think in Colorado for like $2.2 million.
Right.
So, I mean, he had a lot of debt, which is probably the reason why he's going back out on tour with Angels and Airwaves. Right?
Well, yeah, like everybody has a lot of debt.
Absolutely. So, you know, I'm not trying to nitpick on Tom. I'm not a fan of his. I mean, I've pretty much made that known, right?
I've never bought an album. I mean, I'm like Switzerland when it comes to all of this, honestly. Like, I had such hope for TTSA, and I still do. Like, I think like any entity, academy / whatever, like mega conglomerate of what they are, like I think we're going to see some shifting and changing with their goals and their focus over the years, but I don't think we're going to see them just shit out and disappear. Like,
no, he's not going to disappear. Tom's a fighter. I'll give him credit for that. He's a fighter. This was a big blow, losing his 3 key players.
right. This is what I want to know. And then we can wrap up this conversation about this. Why isn't the intelligence giving him better inspiration for songs and music?
Next question. Nicola is asking, what happened to Sky-Hub? Well,
Ooh,
from what I know
some gossip too.
From what I know, they got rid of Bob McGuire, and then the company was run by Steve McDaniel, and then Steve had all the technology and everything. He was the brains behind the operation, and they started their trials. They brought in a couple of people that weren't very well respected in the UFO community. I'm going to keep their names out of it. And basically, Steve McDaniel then got involved with the debrief and really lost due to his work in Washington, D.C., really lost his belief in Sky-Hub and pretty much shut it down. Now, there are people allegedly still working on this, including one person who I have absolutely zero respect for, and I'll keep his name out of it. Nicole knows who it is, you know. And
I'm sorry, I'm like spelling in sign language as you're talking.
Yeah, but they never really.
I do know, and he pooped on me too, so we have that in common.
Yeah, he's an idiot. For a guy with all that education, he's an absolute idiot. And apparently they never got the funding that they wanted in order to make it happen. It never really took off. The sad part about it is they were starting to have success in catching things. It was the right idea.
Right, absolutely. No, and that's why there might be some back burner stuff going on. You know what I mean? So
the Galileo project, because one person from that team who I have zero respect for is trying to hook up with the Galileo project now, and I
heard that too.
Yeah, he's trying to slime his way in there. So
well, you know, I think if I'm understanding it right, they're doing like it's almost like they're inviting in influencers, and I'm sure he would be somebody along those lines. Not really like, oh, we're gonna give them the reins to the project.
No, but you know, the unfortunate part of ufology, and one of the reasons, like I said to my audience, why I step back is all the slime that's involved with this field. Lots of
right.
And I don't think it's.
You know what? I think is the curse of all these organizations and conglomerates coming together. Is it? We all know it's great in theory, and that's what needs to happen. But it's like, it seems like 1 out of the 4 people who are spearheading one of these things, it seems like right after launch, somebody's able to just like blow holes throughout somebody and their character somehow. So it seems to like tank the entire thing.
And you know what? That's a good point. But can I add to that, please? And I'm curious your opinion. Okay.
Yeah.
I really believe the reason why that happens is the UFO slime that's out there, and it comes in all different kinds of factions. All right. Nice shirt, Guns N' Roses.
I wore that just for you tonight.
Rock and roll. But I think what happens is a lot of these people who step into ufology, and all of a sudden, especially if they're scientists, credible scientists, when they step into ufology, they are immediately put on a pedestal by the who's who in ufology, whether it's Dolan, whether it's Linda Bolton Howe, whether it's any of the big names that are out there. They're immediately put on a pedestal, and then you got all the UFO riffraff that, you know, that's popular at the time that tries to hook their sales up to them as well. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, and I want to add to it. And I think how I said it seems to be like 1 in 4, or 1 out of the original group, or whatever it is. I honestly think that it's people aren't absolutely clear on their intentions and what they're setting out to do. So I think I don't want to call it a lie or a manipulation, but I think you have like the majority of the people who are like, this is what we're doing, this is our goal, this is how we're going to work towards it. And then one of them's like, yeah, that's what I want too. That's what I want too. And then that's absolutely not how they handle it at all, or they want to take it in a tangent. Or they've had an underlying purpose all along that kind of comes to light. So I don't know. Like, I can speak from experience, just, you know, in my first dive into like Facebook group moderating, admin, like cat herding. And that was just awful. Like, I mean, later now, like coming out of it, like 3 people I'm still really close to, but like the original like person who formed that group, like their intentions just did not align. Their actions did not align with what they said their intentions were. And it was disastrous, and it was like heartbreaking because, you know, we all thought we were doing something important. And I know, so I understand that feeling. Like, with what's going on with UAPX right now, like, that's no secret. It's, you know, public. And that's sad. Like,
yeah. So that's kind of what I'm getting at here with the entire thing. And, you know, we have a bunch of people who come into ufology all bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, that they could have. And, you know, like with Skyhub, I think they had the right idea, the right everything. But what happens is, little by little, they accidentally, without even knowing, start screwing the community. And it could be as anything as, you know, like I remember sending a note to Steve McDaniel saying, "Hey, buddy, I was on board with you guys, not on board with the company, but supporting you guys and promoting you on Spaced Out Radio before you guys even got off the ground.
Right. And I think that's where people are at right now with Skyhub for sure, because they know that it works. They know that it's customizable. They know it's affordable. And now it's like a dead fish.
I will tell you why I pulled my support from Skyhub. Okay, because at the beginning, when I first met Bob McGuire and Steve McDaniel and Joel Dodd back at UFO Con 2020, okay, literally 10 days before the border was shut down.
That's what I was going to say, right before we all locked down.
Okay, I was talking to them and I said, hey, anything we can do for Spaced Out Radio, let's do it. Okay, I'm there to help. And McGuire had been, well, you guys all know my relationship with Dr. Bob McGuire, Science Bob. Guess who gave him the nickname? I did. Okay. And they ended up, I don't know the story, the background. I've never asked because I'm friends with Bob. I'm friends with Steve, and it's none of my business. But where I started noticing it was on social media, where here we were giving them the first airtime. We were the only ones talking about them, and they were started adding, and it sounds petty, okay, but when you're a show like us and you're trying to build credibility and be, at the forefront of everything, when a group like Skyhub doesn't add you on social media, that says a lot. And it took forever for them. They added everybody else, including all the fake journalists, some of the fake scientists that are out there. They were following them all on Twitter. They followed the other radio shows and podcasts, and they hadn't followed us. So, and the other thing was, I was promised to be one of the first Skyhub holders because they wanted to use my house as a test ground to see how the Skyhub would work in frigid cold weather.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and no, I mean, like I off the top of my head, I think like they wanted to put one with Melinda Leslie and one with Chris Bledsoe and test one with you. And I mean, but aside from that, I know so many people were interested in it because they could actually afford it. And so whether it's Steve or Bob or whoever's involved in it now, like I thought the whole idea was so we could all contribute to it, the data, and
Yes.
Bob had paid for
That was
cloud storage and whatever. So why can't that still be accessed, or why can't people still get it or build one? Like,
can I finish a sentence if you don't mind?
sorry, no, it's 2:28 where I'm at. Finish.
I've been working all day too. So I never asked for the Skyhub. Okay. I never asked for the Skyhub, and I was never approached about one again. And then they added the moron scientist to their team. And I filled Mr. McDaniel in my opinion of the hiring of that person. And he still went along with hiring that person. And I said, I'm sorry, Steve, we at Spaced Out Radio can't support you any longer.
Well, hey, you know where I said there's always that like one person where it's like it all seems like it goes downhill after that? Well, it's like, haven't you noticed a trend with that? Maybe that person doesn't realize their own cycle. It's like they join stuff and then it like goes downhill until they're not a part of it anymore. And then it's like back on track.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Some people are just their own worst enemy.
Yeah, I agree. So that's the Skyhub question. Sovereign Farts wants to know, Nicole, did you notice anything weird happen at the conference in Laughlin? Besides Joe Merge's Brillo pad hairdo.
You know, I did not join them on their sky watches. So I cannot say if anything happened in the sky, but I did witness something that was very just like, what did that actually just happen? Like, we were down in this lounge bar and there was a bunch of us talking, like for the first time, you know, we had met and we're having some drinks, and it's a mixed bag of people. Like, there were people I never imagined I would be talking to, but I was so excited because I was in the same state / hotel / building as Rick Doty, and he was speaking. So I invited Rick to come down with us. And then, of course, everybody was like, Doty's hanging out with everybody. That's so weird. So after everybody got over that, I had the greatest time. Rick was getting up from the table where everybody was seated, and I was watching him specifically because as he moved away from that crowd at the table, I was going to stand up and go say bye to him. And as he was sliding out of the table, the glass that he passed, he moved away from it, and I was looking right at his waist where it passed. He did not touch the table. He did not hit the glass. And I was not the only person who saw it. The entire glass just shattered. Like it had dropped on the floor, just shattered right there at the table.
Wow.
So I don't know if that was something kinetic or like what do paranormal people call it when ghosts throw stuff, or I don't know, but we all kind of just went, did that just happen? Because I think the people that heard it turned and expect to see somebody being like, oh, I'm so klutzy, I dropped this. But it just broke for no reason at all. So I experienced that at Laughlin, but I didn't see a craft or participate in the Skywatch. So
yeah. Another question for you from Jim. What 3 books do you recommend that we read this month?
Aside from mine and Grant's. Oh, shoot. Ask the next question and then I'll look at my 3 because I have them saved in my book list. Did I just disappear?
No, you're still here.
Okay, good. Then I can look and you guys can watch me look.
Well, it would be Cheryl Costa's book for sure.
You know, both of them, whether you get the pink one or the white one, like I think you just need those books.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting to it. Hang on.
All right.
Where's my save for later list? I think everybody needs to check out the book, Are We Alone? Philosophical Implications of the Discovery. Oh, let's get the full title of Extraterrestrial Life by Paul Davies. I think everybody needs to check out that book. And if you need it.
Oh, you froze up. You froze up, Sakach. She froze up. She'll get back here and say, oh, there she is.
Am I back?
You're back.
But it's the book that Lou Elizondo said was like their go-to book in ATIP. So everybody should read that book.
Robert Moobley is asking, did you speak to Aaron Montgomery in Laughlin?
You know, I think in passing, it was like one of those things like, I recognize you. I want to say hi to you, but I never got to have a conversation with her. So sadly, no. And it was like that with quite a few people for me in Laughlin. It was like ships passing in the night, like, you, I want to say hi. Or it's like in mid-sentence, somebody would interrupt you. And yeah, so next time, or hopefully soon sometime.
That's it for our questions. Anybody else have any more questions? Oh, God, I didn't upload that one. Son of a
Oh
gun.
no.
Thought I did. That one's done. Let's share this one.
So hey, maybe my predictive powers are getting stronger because I was right about which kind of surgery, eye surgery.
You're getting witchy.
Mhm. I'm just learning to trust it, trust the intuition. You know who taught me that?
Who? Lynn? Pascal? Sammy
The-
Moe.
My favorite redhead.
Sammy Moe.
You know, like I give people what I think are cute nicknames. So if she totally hates that nickname, I'm going to be totally horrified.
Loves it. She told me.
Then I did it. I'll claim it. I totally named her that cute nickname, Sammy Moe. So, have you convinced her to do like a monthly slot on Spaced Out Radio yet?
Yes.
Is she gonna come on with Lynn monthly, or what's going on?
We're going to leave her with Lynn.
This is breaking news right here, YouTube.
Yeah. So Sammy will be on monthly with Lynn. I think they have a real good chemistry.
They do.
Yeah. And you know, Lynn will ask her things that I won't, not because I don't want to, but because I don't think about it. Sam is just, she's so smart. She is just so smart.
Right.
Pep H is asking, will Nicole go to the SOR Vegas party? No, probably not.
Which one?
Which one?
Is it 2022, 2023?
God.
All of them consecutively? What casino?
Whatever casino we go.
I know. Like, is it going to be a traveling show? Is it always going to be Vegas?
No, I'll tell you the reason why it's always going to be Vegas. Okay, 3 reasons. Number 1, Dave loves Vegas. Number 2, it's a great place for everybody to gather. And number 3, it's most affordable. It's centralized and most affordable to fly to.
That was my thinking face. Did you like it?
Yeah. So, the chances of Nicole actually coming are slim to none. And why does Dave like Vegas? Dave likes Vegas because it just has always felt like home. I've been to other cities and everything. They just don't feel like home. Vegas has always felt like home.
I could probably be talked into going to Vegas, but I don't gamble. So that's always, like I might do it like one round, but I need other motivations. The last 2 times I've gone to Vegas, other than just flying in and out of it, was for weddings.
All right.
So is there going to be a wedding at the SOR Vegas party? That's what I want to know. Are we going to have our first We've got aliens
there may be
couple hookup wedding?
there.
I'm not getting married.
I'm not getting married.
No, I'm not getting married. But I didn't know if somebody from the audience were like, we'll get married in Vegas at the SOR party.
Got engaged on Saturday night.
Who did?
Lynn Wallington and Dave Hurley.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So They may who knows? Maybe they'll get married in Vegas.
Is this some of those little powers, intuition that I was talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, there you go. We'll see
All
if I'm right. We'll see if I'm right.
Sovereign Farts is asking, has Nicole had any more odd experiences with rocks or boulders?
Well, I will let you guys judge this, and you tell me if it's odd or not. So some of you who have heard my story, you might have heard me talk about a reoccurring dream with crystals that I have. And I've been asking various people like their thoughts and opinions on crystals or if they've encountered this, and I've heard some stories. So that's cool. But this is something I didn't realize. And Dave, I had a tough couple days there last week. I lost my dear sweet kitty cat that I've had for the better part of my adult life. And I buried her in the spot where I've buried 2 other family cats. And this may sound funny, but when you're depressed, you often try to think of funny stuff or you crack jokes to try to cheer yourself up. Well, Grant and I talk about Linda Moulton Howell's portal cat story, where one of her cats passed away and a portal appeared and the cat was like letting her know that it was okay. And it was very emotional, beautiful experience. Well, I cracked the joke to Grant that, my cat had passed, but no portal opened up for me. And, it was sad and I didn't realize how depressed I was going to be. So I went to bury my cat and my son wanted to have a funeral and he wanted to have a marker, like a headstone. And so we buried a ball of yarn and a can of tuna with the cat. And I'm looking all over this area to try to find like a stone. And I pick up this big rock and it's a crystal. It's one of those like crystal-y, like you can see like shafts of crystal coming off of it. And I was like, this is going to be our headstone. And then he wanted to see where my other cats were buried. So I'm like digging through like this foliage that had like grown up. And I hadn't remembered this, but the other 2 cats are marked with the same kind of stone too. So I have crystal headstone markers in my pet cemetery. Stone, odd, I don't know, maybe.
All right, next question. For this one's from Jordan. Nicole, who is your favorite UFO researcher?
Great, Cameron. Followed by Preston, didn't it?
Tony, Dave, would you like to have UFO Jesus on your show?
Yeah, I would.
I would. Absolutely. I'll interview almost anybody.
I don't want to call him UFO Jesus, though. I want to call him Ryan.
No way. He'll always be UFO Jesus to me. He's got beautiful hair. Very nice hair.
Dude, I've never said it to you, but yeah, he might have the coolest hair in ufology. It's the longest. It's the longest. Hey, Ryan, I like sharing the love with Ryan. He does provocative stuff, and I like that.
I'm going to say this about Ryan. I think he does great work. I would definitely bring him on the show. He is one of those I have a pair of daddy long leg spiders crawling on my Canadian flag right now. Oh well. Anyways, he is he's one of those anomalies that came out of nowhere and got a lot of information. And how he got that information, no one knows.
He's in the field.
Way beyond that.
No, I mean like tapped into the field. Like
he's now tapped in. He's really now tapped in. But previous, it's the same anomaly as a guy I respect in Danny Silva. Okay.
No. I'm going deep with this. Like, I'm meaning like he's tapped in, like that's like part of like, it's almost like a download experience to him. Like that's part of his experiencer thing is like he knows that line to follow. Like it's a gift. And he's developed it. So he's got contacts now.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's why I want to interview him. I want to ask him weird questions like that.
Yeah. Let me see here. Next question. Excalibur. Does Nicole think Lou and the DOD were investigating CE5, demonology, magic, and other parts of the occult side of the phenomena?
I think all of that falls under like the X-File-ish, like psychic phenomenon, like weird death. Like we referenced the weird desk and like who has sat at the weird desk. And I think as opportunity has arose, they've probably investigated all sorts of high strangeness. So, I mean, I wouldn't count it out.
Let's remember that Lou also worked at Skinwalker Ranch.
Well, and I least people forget, like, I mean, the spirituality movement at the turn of the century, like, fueled a lot of politics and science and things like that. So, I mean, what we consider like occult and woo and the high weirdness, or, I mean, like Christians like to call everything satanic, like that has come and gone in like cycles of acceptance. So, just like, I mean, the Nazi regime looking into like ancient power artifacts and things like that. I mean, I think it's like grabs like that. You can take it all sorts of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Space Cow, would Nicole come to Western Canada to hunt UFOs?
Well, I would probably want to hunt UFOs and Bigfoot, but yes.
All right, moving on. Nicole, this is from Brian. Nicole once said in the chat that she loves to eat baby animals. What's the tastiest baby animal?
It's a toss-up between just like the simple egg or veal. I'm just gonna hit it home with the good old veal. Veal's delicious. I'm sorry, I cannot lie.
Nikki is asking, do you know or remember any past lives in Atlantis?
No, I cannot say Atlantis. And honestly, recently I have just kind of accepted that one of the dreams that I thought was a reoccurring dream is actually like me being taken back to a death scene in one of my past lives. If you follow past lives, you know what I mean. Like often you get taken to your death. And I think I've experienced that or accepted that for the first time. So Atlantis, here I come. That's many cycles ago.
All right. Hello to gorgeous Jean Beckett and her brother Preston for coming in the chat room.
Dave, who'd have thought that like 3 years ago that I would talk about past lives and how I've discovered and accept a past life. Little old nuts and bolts me who was like, I want to try some CE5 stuff. Pre-Grant Cameron. You remember pre-Grant Cameron, Nicole?
Yep. Jonathan Davies. I don't know what Lou's other Twitter profile and the first person he followed. Send that to me on a DM. All right. That's about it.
Are we talking secret Twitter accounts?
Maybe.
I know. Like, I don't know. This disheartens me, people. You can't talk transparency and then have secret accounts. It looks bad.
Mm-hmm.
I started saying this when I started getting in heated debates about on whether or not Mr. X should drop being Mr. X and come forward. So, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, but it also says, like, once a spy, always a spy. Like, all spies have a fake account so they can keep spying.
Mm-hmm.
With that, I'm going to say goodnight.
Me too. I'm going to bed too.
Rock on.
Thanks for coming on.
I'll think of all you when I wake up in 4 hours.
I'm going to be up in 6 hours. Rock and roll. Number one. Later, YouTubers, big thank you tonight to Ozzy, Steve, Anya, Lori, Chris, Patrick, Spooky, G West, Marty, Ozzy, Ange, Kira, Space Cow, Pascal, Science Bob, Abe, and Simon for the incredible super chats tonight. Thank you so much for the love. Thank you to all the veterans listening into our show tonight. We really appreciate it. And thank you to all of you for sticking around. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already. And, make some comments on our shows. So when this goes to archive and on the YouTube channel, we'd love some conversation on there. All right. Don't forget, if you're not following us on social media, you can do so at Spaced Out Radio on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio Show on Instagram. My personal handles on both Instagram and Twitter are at Dave Scott, SOR. And of course, we have our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have some really cool swag there for you that you can pick on up. And it's a great way to support this show. And if you do buy swag, remember, I want pictures for our SOR's fan zone. So check it on out. Go to our website today. We'll talk to you all tomorrow night. Dr. Paul Kingsbury and Robert Powell from the SCU, Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies. And we are going to get into UFOs tomorrow night. We'll talk to you all then. Take care.